It's a shame you only live once, because this episode is to die for. Find out more on this week's episode of the IndyBall Report podcast. Welcome back, episode number 264 of the IndyBall Report podcast, the show where we discuss in depth the histories of the modern European steps and tab soda.
Yeah, we cover some ground, man.
We do. The pre-show is just an exciting time for everybody.
Dude, we really got to wrangle that in.
Yeah, because we started this about 2 hours ago, and it just...
This is the second week in a row, to be fair, that was my fault because I showed up unprepared because of work. And then, I had to do all my prep basically while we were just, talking. But I did kind of let you go. And just... Yeah. You're happy enough
definitely points where I should have stopped, like when we started reading through a reggae festival that's going to be held in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Man, don't tempt me with a good time.
Elephants dancing.
I mean, yeah, man, you'll probably see all sorts of stuff, whether it's, real or otherwise.
What about DJ Menace bringing the good vibes and a drum circle for the community?
What a drum circle for the community. That feels like a sitcom bit, either from Shameless or Letterkenny.
I get more Shameless vibes from that.
Yeah, that's fair. But, yeah. Anyway,
so speaking of Shameless, this episode is Shameless
this week. Okay, yeah, I'll talk right over that one.
Yeah, no, I'll just go right through it. It's my show after all.
I appreciate that.
See, for all those moments where you pull out, well, it is your show, and I get the short end, I'm going to use it when I don't get the short end.
No, I mean, if you're going to do a podcast that I'm on, you got to have a certain amount of, I'm running right through whatever you're saying right now, because I just have that. I'll get a thought in my head, and, it's happening. It's already out my mouth. It's I live most of my life like that scene on Titanic at the front of the boat, where it's just, arms out, chest and face forward, just, trying to get the words back that just came out of my mouth. That's, 90% of my day. Well,
in fairness, that's what happens when you're between therapists, so...
I'm a weird fit for corporate America. Oh, well. And for Lexington, apparently. But
well, see, if only you posted more on Facebook, one of them would probably still be there. Mm-hmm. On the other account, I guess just go plant some trees, because we are seeing other teams planting roots this week, such as the ValleyCats, who have named their coaching staff. How is that for a segue?
That was nice, dude. That's
People enjoyed this show, too.
With how long that took you to nail down the intro, I'm really impressed with how quickly you've turned this around fully and you got the momentum going. That's good work, man. Just tooting your own horn. I don't like you enough to do that.
Like a reliever in the bullpen. Once the arm gets warm, we're good to go. You're going to see me sprinting in, and JT Real Muto just...
doing the head shake, yeah.
It's that's going badly. He only gave how many home runs during that?
I'm showing self-control here.
There's a lot of times where that meme's applicable. But yes, we're going to talk about the ValleyCats staff, because that's the only bit of news we have. Then we have a Billy Horton interview, and then we have a Pioneer League review, all 10 teams. So that'll be fun. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the ValleyCats staff, shall we?
Sure.
We know their hitting coach / third base coach, their pitching coach, and a fundamentals coach. Good fundies. Keith Hernandez approves.
Yeah, boy. Hands on stick, bud.
So we'll go through each of these one by one. There's a little bit of a note on each of these guys, and we'll give our thoughts on the individual. Then we'll move on to the next coach thoughts. Then you get how this goes.
Sure.
So hitting coach, third base up first. Kent Matsuka is going to be the hitting coach. He held several titles in the Japanese independent leagues, various coaching positions, including manager for a short period of time. He's also the CEO of Policali Baseball. It is spelled in the Spanish way, so I assume it is in Latin America.
Baseball. Nailed it.
That's why he's here, folks. In case we ever need to...
I was going more for the Telemundo voiceover, which isn't really how Spanish ever sounds, but so much more fun, dude.
You have any thoughts on Ken? Because he's just Ken. And anywhere else, he'd be a 10.
God. I was just trying to not even engage with that right now. Well, I mean, did you have thoughts on that? I kind of got lost in all that you just put out there, because there was a lot to field.
Honestly, I just don't really know if there's much of a track record in North America. He seems like a little bit of an odd decision to go with there. But then again, I also wonder how much, like hitting coaches and third base coaches can actually, do on a team.
It did make me wonder if they're going to bring in somebody, like bring in an international player too. I wonder if they got something cooking there and they think it'll be a benefit to have that connection. You know what I mean?
Could be. Very could be that.
That's, a huge leap to take, to be like, oh, they got this one guy and he's from Japan, so maybe they're about to sign some Japanese guys. He was at Saranac Lake, by the way. I mean, he's got experience up in the New York area, so this isn't super random. He could live local.
Empire League experience, huh?
Yeah, weird they didn't mention. Like, I don't know, it's make of the Empire League what you choose to make of it. I'm actually fairly 50-50 on it, but
he's bullish on the Empire League.
You mention it that he is, from, I don't know, not that far away.
It's really. The Empire League, though. Like, how much good is that really doing, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying that, but it's more of a you may know him from. Because, like, I don't know, people who are into, like, the New York indie ball scene, I feel like could also be the type of people who would be like, oh, he was with, Saranac Lake.
So he's trying. So you're saying he may give some Troy McClure vibes?
Yeah. It's from, you might know me from Get Confident, Stupid, and Smoke Yourself to Death. Literally, they're like 100, they're up 87 from each other. I don't know, whatever. I don't know. It's interesting. I would be impressed if this is like a precursor to an international signing, which if there is a Frontier League who's going to bring in a Japanese player of like some caliber, I would say Tri-City's the most likely, right?
I think they're among there. I can see maybe Joliet doing something like that. I think Mike Pinto and the Vex definitely have the connections and the ability to do it. Trying to think of other ones. Quebec's obviously always in contention, but that's not normally their style.
Yeah.
And Schaumburg,
passports to wrangle.
Yeah, Schaumburg's the low key one I'd watch too on that front.
Interesting.
Because they've definitely had something similar to that in the past. I know.
Again, could be nothing. I mean, that was not necessarily the headliner here, but interesting. It was definitely the one that caught my eye because it just felt so different.
Definitely. Moving on to the pitching coach then. Tom Thornton. Third time he's going to be with Taggart. I was with him in Winnipeg last year. The last 2 years in Gary, he was there. And then he was shortly a player under Greg Taggart in 2009-2010, also in Gary, as you could guess. And he has thrown over 340 professional innings from 2006 to 2010. Thoughts on Tom Thornton?
I mean, he knows indie ball guys. That's a good thing.
Pitching staff sucked last year.
Yeah, that is interesting. That caught my eye immediately. I was like, "That's." Yeah,
I was like, "You're bringing back the guy,
okay," type of thing.
Yeah, like this is the guy that put together one of the worst staffs.
For a manager who we had concerns about when it came to being stuck in his ways and not adapting, bring back the same. I mean, all right. Well, look, they were top half of the league in pitching last. Oh no, I'm looking at 2022. Sorry. So, but you kind of you see where I'm going. So back to the point is, I just think it's not a great sign. Yeah, second worst in the American Association by most standards. I would say. I think it's fair.
Yeah.
You could argue third worst, which is ooh la la.
Wait, who would you put him ahead?
Yeah, I mean, in that instance, maybe Gary. Sioux Falls obviously is its own situation.
Yeah. Well.
So. I don't know about that one. That worries me for sure. I would say Gary. That season in Gary was better than average. I would say
that's good,
reasonably so. In fact, among all the teams in the league that year, damn, that's tough. Yeah. No, they were below average.
Okay.
They were a big picture above average, but for the year and the competition, they were below, if that makes sense.
I'm looking at the ERA from 21 now.
Yeah, and I'm looking at 2023 right now. And I mean, they were They're,
1-6.
I would
What the hell?
say, I mean, yeah, I think they were probably the worst pitching staff in the league last year. Come to think of it. Actually, yeah, I would confidently say that. I forgot with like the park factories that come with Cleaver and Sioux Falls and all that. It's funny. Damn. Yeah, dude, I can't justify that.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's an odd decision. Like, if the staff even had like some bright spots, because we went through them last week, right? When we were saying like, oh, well, what can you take away as like league average or above league average pitching from that staff? And what we come up with 2-3 names?
Yes, if I recall.
So if we're saying overwhelming majority of your pitching staff failed to be league average or in some cases even serviceable, why are we bringing that back? Why are we running it back? I think that warrants some conversation.
And now it depends on how it went. Was it that, they weren't getting good talent there and we feel like with better talent he could do better? But like, that's not the best endorsement. Like, I would have coached a lot better if I had better players. Like DZ.
Like, on one hand,
I do understand. DJ Wilkinson and friends last year, essentially.
Yeah, like I kind of get it on one level though, because you have the Canadian factor. But like at the same point in time, though, like
Canadian factor. Sorry,
you know what I mean by that. But, yeah, it's like South Park.
It sounds like a bad show. To be honest, I'm like, ooh, that's not going to make it through 2 seasons.
Who's going to survive to the next round of Canadian factor?
Canadian factor. That's the worst show. Anyway,
my moralist point here, now that we're back on track, is just I think it would be easier to still get talent into the American Association than it will be for the Frontier League, just because of the roster rules of it and the fact that Frontier League is going to skew younger. You're going to need to take more risk with unknown players and unknown quantities, and you can't have as many of those surefire bets there with only the 4 vet spots and just the way you have to construct a roster there. So I don't feel like it's any easier to get talent into Tri-City versus Winnipeg. It may be an easier spot among the Frontier League. I can understand that, and I'd agree with that. But comparatively, it just feels like it's a tougher setup.
Yeah, and honestly, I think about it a lot. Like, Pioneer League requires so much more coaching at times because it's just the dynamic of you're not taking guys from other leagues. You're taking a lot of the time, not all the time, obviously, but a much higher percentage of time. You're taking guys from college who were competing mostly against, younger people, like less experienced players. And because it's not like they left early for the most part. Like a lot of guys played 4 years. So you're playing younger guys. You're the experienced one. You're the bigger one. You're literally more fully grown. You have more years of experience on this thing. Yeah. And then now you're even though it's a league where the age is low, it is still, you are, the new guy, and it's all new, first time taking on professional batters. There's a bigger talent variation. You're in a league where the ball goes, like the run environment's a nightmare.
Yeah. You go from being the man among boys to just being another man among men.
Okay, that's fair. I like that.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at that one. But yeah, Thornton is a bit of an interesting thing. I assume he just works well with Taggart, and he just wants to keep him on for that reason. There's clearly a history there. And I mean, I understand to a certain extent here, but still, I feel like at a certain point, this is still a results-oriented business. And if the results aren't there, like, when do we pull the plug?
Yeah, and again, it's tough because, sure, last year it was the worst pitching staff in the league, but it seems like, again, there's stuff going on there. I mean, I always look at PJ Phillips and his, like, really bad season in Lexington between a championship season and then taking a team in the Jackal situation last year to the playoffs. Like, that middle year had a lot of stuff going on, and it looked really bad. And then I think about, the year before this, while it was the pitching staff he had before this in Gary, while it was below average compared to the league that year, it was bigger picture, an above average pitching staff he worked. So, it's one bad year saying to throw a guy out isn't necessarily fair, but it is one that goes, all right, that's not changing, and it does make you kind of wonder.
There's 2 years of subpar results. So at what point, it's fair to call that first Gary year subpar.
I'm going to give it average to above average, but you do you, man. Be as harsh as you feel you need to be.
I'm going to be as harsh as I need to be. But I feel like at this point, my mark's already pretty known.
Yeah, that's fair. And
I mean,
I do too. I'm not sure. I don't know.
You can't.
We'll see. I'll have more of an open mind to this, but
I like to view it like this. If I am harsh and honest when I'm nice, that's genuine. And think of how much that means then.
Sure, I guess. I think I follow you there.
Yeah.
Maybe
we just need a fundamentals coach like Tom McManus, who was with the Brewers ACL in 23, and he has a history in youth ball and college ball.
I'm curious more than anything, right? Like, I'm like, where's okay? Like, what does it not be like? What does that mean? But like, kind of, what does that mean?
Like, if I'm not mistaken, he also
done.
I think he's also done some work with analytics too. So he could just be a coach that's there to kind of like help with the integration there. Yeah, he was a defensive coordinator at Norfolk State in 22.
I love defensive coordinator positions for baseball. I actually unironically like it.
Yeah, so he's solid there. And when he was at UMBC, he helped create a scouting and analytic report system.
Yeah, I mean, that's a vibe.
Honestly, I'm the highest on McManus out of everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
Because like there's definitely a translatable skill there, 100%. Mm-hmm. And he seems to have experience working with younger guys, which he's going to be doing here. So there's relatability there. And I would assume on some level, he knows how to approach guys and say, hey, dude, take a look at these numbers. I'm not going to tell you to implement it. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your career, but this is what this means. This is how you could improve. And I feel like when it comes from a baseball guy that worked with a major league team and is a little bit of an older guy, it hits a little bit different than when you have, someone that's still in college or a recent grad or something like that come down and be like, so let me tell you about how your FIP could improve.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I follow where you're going there.
Yeah, more or less a medium of the message more than the message.
Yeah, I like the idea. I laugh about a fundamentals coordinator, but like I'm also the one who's like I like it, and I'm one of the people who's like we have all this specialization in this game in every sport, and I feel like baseball's a little behind at times. I mean, you see these major league staffs that have a lot of guys, not just the core four bench, hitting, pitching, and the manager. But I'm looking at where baseball wants to go with this, and I like seeing teams at the Pioneer League level like who are interested in this kind of option.
Well, it's also the Frontier League level, but yes, the point stands.
Yeah, but I mean, that's where it. Yeah, I guess it means I could see every reason for the Pioneer League and Pioneer League team. I'm sorry, Frontier. Damn you! I just got it. Too much Pioneer League talk as we were doing the preview for this. For the Frontier League, even still though, I mean, the Frontier League has plenty of reason to not, go the extra mile and try to bring somebody in. I'll say this, whether we agree with the decision or not, Tri-City is an organization that I at least never doubt that they're very serious about winning, which I like.
True. That is the thing. They do commit to winning. They have had success, and they seem like they genuinely care and they genuinely try. So I'll trust them for now. And obviously, we've been critical of the hirings in the past. But at a certain point, they're going to hit the field and have a chance to
tell us to shove it.
Pretty much, yeah. I was going to try to be creative, but that's pretty much it.
This was.
Yeah. So, with no other thoughts there, I guess we'll throw it to the interview, I suppose.
Yeah, man, I'm about it.
All right, yeah. So we're talking to Billy Horton this week, manager over in Yolo County, the Highwheelers, if you would. I've been talking to Billy for a little bit, back and forth. Said once they formally make the announcement of him and Yolo, we'll schedule something. And then they made the announcement. And then we didn't schedule something for a little bit, more or less on me. And then we got it finally on the docket. And we talked to him on Friday. And this is the conversation we had with him. We return to the interview series this week with the high-wheeling manager of Yolo's Ball Club, Billy Horton. Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Doing great.
We're happy to have you on, and trust me, we love talking about the Pioneer League, and your ball club last year had a very good run, very magical run to the final, and you have a interesting position this year, getting to start a ball club from scratch, essentially being the manager in Yolo County. So I guess we have two real directions we could start and go in. Do you have a preference if we go to Billings or we go to Yolo first?
When I go to a steak restaurant, I don't order fish. So this is your podcast.
Oh, he did the thing. That's your move.
Yeah, you stole a page out of Ryan's book there. I appreciate it. I guess we'll start, we'll go to Billings first and we'll work chronologically, I guess, there.
Yes.
So
Okay.
we'll do it that way. So what was it like in Billings last year? Because Ryan just mentioned off air that we did our Pioneer League preview last year, and we noticed that come I think it was end of June, you really plugged a lot of gaps, and then the boys just picked it up in the second half and ran with it, had a 15-game winning streak. So I'm curious to know how the year was from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if we start out when I got the job, which was late January, so I had a late start. I've been interviewing for some major league jobs and it didn't work out, and the Billings job was there. Basically February 1st is kind of my first day on the job, and we are scrambling. I mean, and I had full authority where the owner, Dave Heller, was great. He just said, new GM's coming in from Grand Junction, and he was assistant GM over there, Matt Allen. Matt Allen was awesome during the year as well. And he's like, you have full autonomy, go get it. And so I literally, first year of indie ball, called every scout and every coach and everyone I knew and started building just this Rolodex, if you will, and went to the California Winter League and picked up some guys there. And then MLB teams are here in Arizona, so picked up some guys through the releases, and we felt good about what we had. And the crazy thing was, about 10 days prior, and Ryan, you can maybe empathize with this, 10 days prior to me leaving for Billings, as I'm going to drive for 3 days, 7 players went down with either injury or they decided to retire. And we went from 32 guys to like 27 guys, and we had to sign more. So I'm literally signing guys on the road as I'm driving to Billings. I signed one guy, I think I was in, I don't know if I was in Utah or where I was at, and we signed a pitcher. I mean, we were calling guys that we didn't sign originally. Other scouts called me last minute, so it was a scramble. We got there and we started out pretty good against Missoula. 3-3, good start, and then bam, we hit a 9-game losing streak. And then from there, it's hard to get your legs back underneath you. And we're getting, kind of towards the All-Star break, and I think we're 2 games under. We just finished a good series against Northern Colorado, and we go to Boise and we just stink. I mean, we ran into a buzzsaw with Missoula at our place again, and then Glacier, we played terrible against them the first half. And then we went to Boise. We lost 5 out of 6. The team was just kind of listless, and they didn't have energy, and we were 10 games under 500. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and Gary Van Tol is an excellent manager. And he basically, I joke with him now, is like, thank you, because you kicking our ass essentially got me motivated to move on and to do more stuff. So we scouted better. We started, using a little bit more, I would say, of some data. I wouldn't go as far as deep and say that we went too much into analytics, but definitely looked into the data and started doing defensive shift cards. We had enough information now over the first half. We needed to coach better. I went to Dennis and Craig's. We needed to coach better. I needed to do better, and we needed to bring in better players. The guys just weren't getting it done, and they were good human beings, great men, but we just weren't clicking. So we found some guys who, didn't get drafted, and they were D1 kids, and they were hungry, and they played a game more than I was used to. We didn't hit for power. We weren't fast, and we were an average defensive team, and an average pitching team the first half. And I'm very much like, pedal the metal. I've got some amazing base running coaches I've had in the past, like Vince Coleman and Tom Trebelhorn. If you don't know who Treb is, when Ricky Henderson went to the Hall of Fame, he mentioned Treb in his speech because he was his rookie ball or his A-ball manager back in the 70s. So these guys have taught me about base running, and we just weren't running the bases well at all. So we got faster, we got stronger, and I'll tell you what, I said this all along, that God gets all the glory and the players deserve all the credit. And I enjoyed riding shotgun there for a while because we helped build it, and then the kids just took over. And August was crazy. I mean, it was nuts to watch what they did.
Yeah. I mean, when you rattle off nearly 2 perfect weeks, 3 perfect weeks of just winning, going well, and everything's just smooth and going for 4 weeks, 5 weeks at a time, I imagine just the full, I don't want to call it culture shift, but attitude shift in the clubhouse is really noticeable, because I know last night when we were doing our review on the Pioneer League, how we were talking about how everything can switch so quickly, right? When you go on those long losing streaks, one series is like, okay, you lose 2 or 3, that happens, it's baseball. But when it starts to accumulate, it starts to get you down a bit. You start to doubt yourself. But the complete opposite is the case when you start winning a lot. You seem almost invincible. Like, there's nothing that we can do right now that's going to, harm this vibe, this attitude in the clubhouse right now. So that whole shift in really the product on the field and the production on the field and the results, I only imagine what that did for the attitude and the culture of the players in that room.
Yeah, and going back to the first half, again, we had a good group of young men that got along really well. They just didn't play great together. And the second half, some of the new guys we brought in changed the way we played, and it allowed us to do different things. And then, like you just said, it was crazy. Like, I think we're down 7 runs to Ogden at their place. And it was just, the guys were on the bench, so it's like, that's okay. Like, we got this. Now, granted, we had put 32 on them the first 2 games of the series. And so that kind of makes you feel good about it. And we already won, 10 or 12 in a row. But it was insane. Like, we went down, we were at home, we won a bunch in a row, and then went on the road and won 6 in a row at Ogden. I mean, these guys, it didn't matter what the score was. They were convinced they were going to win the game no matter what. And teams would score in the first inning, didn't matter. Like, by the 9th inning, we're going to be on top. And again, those guys just played so well together, and their belief was through the roof. Like, they knew they were going to win.
Yeah. Attitude and your mindset going into a game and in the situation is just so critically important, because sports is half mental as much as it is the physical ability to do it. So there's a certain magic being around that kind of atmosphere and that kind of confidence among everyone in the dugout. And I imagine as a manager, especially seeing all these young guys have that kind of belief in themselves, their game, and their teammates, is really a special experience to be around and to see happen.
Yeah, and I credit Dennis and Craig for jumping on board with the way I manage. I believe John Wooden is the greatest coach that ever walked the earth, no matter what sport you're talking about. And according to his players, he never spoke about winning. So I took that on years ago when the Giants first gave me a chance to manage in 2018 in rookie ball. We do not discuss winning, and we have only 4 rules in our locker room, and it's how you rate yourself every day as a person. And R is respect, A is accountability, T is timeliness, and E is excellence. And we did not discuss winning, even when we lost 9 in a row, and people were coming to me like, "What are you going to do?" We just tied the Billings record, the 75-year-old record for losing streak. I'm like, awesome, that's great. Then we end up we don't freak out. We just focus on what we're doing. We don't discuss winning and losing. And then we go into August, and all of a sudden we tie the 75-year-old record for the most wins in a row. So then all of a sudden everyone's happy, right?
Yeah.
So winning does solve things. You guys have both been around the game long enough to know that. And the kids, again, I credit them. I credit the staff, even the front office. I brought in the way I teach and the way I coach. And even though it was a little bit different from maybe some things they've known in the past, they were on board. And again, I want to credit Dennis and Craig for what they did, and also AJ Crapo, because he helped with the analytics, he helped with the scouting, and the 4 of us worked together really well.
Yeah, I mean that, and also I guess the last thing I have before I throw it over to Ryan is just working with an organization has that much history to it. A 75-year-old record possible on any level of the game is really something special here. Is that kind of, I don't want to say an appeal going in, but is that something you think about when you're part of a team like that? Like, hey, I'm part of a larger piece of history here with this organization in a circumstance like that.
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a baseball historian. My parents were both in their early 40s when I was born. I'm the youngest of 8 kids. I grew up on 1968 Tigers when they won the World Series. and they're down 3-1. I learned all about baseball. There's a huge scrapbook on the '68 Tigers. So 80s was my decade. Like I started watching baseball. My first memory of a game was the '82 World Series, Brewers and Cardinals, when the Cardinals beat the Brewers. I was rooting for the Brewers. For me, like I realized going into it how many Cincinnati Reds had stepped on that field. And then I couldn't tell you the teams that were before that, but I respected the fact. And I knew going into, I was told about Billings is that they had a crowd that they know the game, I told the players almost like kind of like a St. Louis Cardinals type crowd. Like they're baseball savvy. They know the game. Now it's a bit of an older crowd. So there wasn't a lot of, crazy jumping around like Missoula, but, they knew the game and they respected it and they had a lot of pride. So when we went on that winning streak, like they were so overjoyed, and I just wanted to win for the city. I really did. Like I could care less about what my record was. I was, as a manager, like I really wanted Billings to go, and they went through those 9 games with us. So that go for those 15 with us, they really had a lot of pride.
Yeah, I imagine that, and also being that it's an older crowd that you don't see as much, up and movement and everything with that. When you do get that kind of cheer and you do see that in a crowd, it's like, okay, we really did accomplish something right now. We're able to get a crowd that might not always be, the most active into the game, active, moving around. It's like, okay, we did something special right this second.
Yeah, it was cool. There was an interview that came out towards the end of that winning streak. And the guy was talking to me, and we had this interview, and we talked about what was going on. And one of the employees was like, "Hey, Billy, you got to show him the level in your office." Yeah. So we go in there, and I had this 100-year-old level that I got from my grandfather. And he worked for Ford Motor back in the day, and he had all these old tools in his garage. And I had it on my desk, and it reminds me, stay level. So, because I was very up as a player, I was very up and down. Like I was just kind of a mess. Like I was super like intense, and I was good and I was bad. I was good and I was bad. So it reminded me just every day I would walk out on the field, I remember to stay level. And I told him, I'm like, hey, there's this Bible verse. It's Psalm 143, verse 10. And I said, it talks about staying level. Well, the guy, he puts it into the article, puts the full scripture into the article, which I thought was really amazing. Actually, I got really emotional when I read it. And then I go out to the field, and they're reading the articles. They're yelling, stay level, Billy, stay level. And they're doing, like, the crowd was so into it, but in their own way, right? Like Missoula, I love Schlacht. He's a buddy of mine. Yeah. Different vibe. Yeah. And fun, but crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you expect that though from a place that calls themselves Zoo Town. I mean,
yes, it was a zoo. It was a zoo. Yeah. It was fun to play against them every day.
Okay, I imagine. So I'll stop monopolizing the whole interview. I'll let Ryan jump in here and we'll get his perspective on things and see where he takes this.
The problem when I let you go first is that it's always the same thing, which is you start asking things. I have a plan, and then I end up getting new questions from that, and the plan's a disaster over here. Notepad's already trashed. There were a few things that jumped out at me, though, so we'll go with that. I mean, and while this podcast entirely is essentially just an audio version of Bad Takes Exposed, because I think y'all lost 9 in a row, and I said, can we bury Billings? I think we can bury Billings. This isn't going to work. And then we were also later doing an over-under that involved over-under, will you guys lose a single game this week? So, it was a year, bit of a ride. But while we were talking about or looking at the connections for the review episode, which this also teams up with, it sort of hit me how impactful the roster moves y'all were making were. I was really looking at like late June, and I know you brought some pitching in there. I mean, what does that process look like? So I'm guessing it's around you lost for a week straight, and Missoula's being Missoula, and you start having that point of like, okay, maybe some moves need to be made here. From keeping in mind how hard it is to find pitching in every league nowadays, I mean, what does that process look like? Where do you start first, essentially trying to find some potential options that might be able to step up into the Pioneer League and actually be a stopper or answer the bell for y'all in one way or another?
Right. So I know one thing you guys have talked about in the past is I listened to the show. I like the show. You guys do a great job.
Hey,
And the one thing that I think about when you say it is you kind of put guys into a box where it's like new manager comes in, he's never been in indie ball before. Good luck. But like the experience of being with the Giants for 8 years, how many scouts I sat down with during spring training, going to the World Series and hanging out with these guys, spending time on the phone, all those things, all those relationships you build, you keep those relationships. So my wife will testify to this because my wife and kids were with me for June and July, and my wife isn't going to go on the bus for Pete's sake, So the owner was great. He's like, hey, just follow behind the bus. So I drove my truck up for the season, and as she's driving, I'm literally on my laptop for 4 hours as we drive to Great Falls, and I'm just on the hotspot. And every moment I had, I was grinding. I was absolutely grinding. I mean, as a player, I was just a very average guy. I had one tool. I had a great arm. I was a one tool guy, but I worked my tail off. And so I tell people, like, good luck outworking me. I'm going to work my tail off. And so it was phone calls, emails, text messages, people I met for the first time ever at the California Winter League, a lot of Frontier League managers, talking to those guys, trying to pull off trades, talking to college coaches, going to Division I and Division II, like, so basically NCAA.org, looking at the top 50 guys I look at things at like OPS. I look at things like RBIs. I look at, batting average. I know you guys have that fight, which I love, kind of go between. But there's certain things like when I was a kid, I wanted to lead my team in two things. I wanted to lead my team in runs scored and RBIs, because if we score more runs, we're going to win more games. And then, that's the currency of the game, right? Yeah. So for me, I looked at different things, and I literally just went online and looked for things, and I'd send an email or get a phone call or call a scout on the East Coast. Hey, do you know this guy? You know this guy? So it was just a grind of reaching out and searching. I mean, it's being a manager in indie ball when you have, like, for myself, the way we're structured is I pretty much have full autonomy. We just found what we thought was going to be the best. We didn't care. For pitching, I look at whip. I look at walk to strikeout ratio, wins and losses, not so much as does the guy come in and throw strikes. I know in our league, we're going to get 90-92 is going to be your average pitcher, right? From the right side. So I cared more about guys who came in and threw strikes. I didn't care as much about bringing in velocity. I mean, we don't have time to develop you starting in July. We'll do our best to try to help you along, and you'll learn something, but it's not like we're going to be in rookie ball or back in the day, a short season and developing players over a long period of time. We have to come in, we have to produce now. So we found guys who scored runs, who drove in runs, and we found guys who threw strikes. And luckily they came together and they meshed really quick.
Now, a couple of times you've actually mentioned, and this is not something I plan to talk about, but I didn't think it'd be that interesting. But since you continue to bring it up, you've mentioned Dave Heller a couple of times and ownership. Now, that's interesting for me because I worked when Dave started in Wilmington. I was an intern at the time, then did community affairs over there. So I'm familiar with Dave, and it was a big culture shock in Wilmington because it was sort of very, like the same people and the same sort of family running things. So all of a sudden it's Dave Heller, who's got a very specific and forward and intense energy and very go, go, go. And we were like, oh, all right. And it was fun, but it was also a little bit terrifying, I think, for some people. But I got a kick out of it. And it's interesting to hear him because it occurs to me, I mean, all of a sudden they're owning an independent team. I mean, how from the perspective of like Dave going from owning affiliate teams to now having to, bankroll essentially a roster being put together. I mean, how has he sort of been able to step up with that? Has he been, pretty gung ho about it, or is there still some like tight restrictions to got to work within? I don't know. I don't even know how to phrase that question because it is a very odd dynamic. It just occurred to me that they now own independent and affiliated, but I mean, has that been an adjustment from his perspective? Did it seem like, or is it they've kind of hopped in?
So Dave and I spoke maybe once a month. For me, he was great where he said, here's the keys to the car, just go. Your job is to run the baseball side. Matt's going to run the business side. And, we have connections with the Royals because of him owning Quad Cities. And then, so if the Royals called, like, hey, at least give them, give them consideration if they've got a player. So that was kind of the ground rules. The ground rules were beat Missoula and put together the best roster you can. And those are the two things he asked me to work. And then it's funny. He sent me a video clip because I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan.
Yeah.
So he sent me a video clip of the old ESPN commercials with the Ohio State, Michigan. So, for me, we got along fine. He's got so much going on with owning multiple teams. Really, he had the 3 teams with the Kansas City team, the team of the Nationals, and then our team. I think there's restrictions in indie ball no matter where you go. I played indie ball back when it was, I kind of feel like it's the origins of indie ball back in the Frontier League in the mid 90s. So no matter where you go, there's going to be restrictions. So yeah, I mean, in the Pioneer League, you have to pay the state minimum wage. So, we had to pay the state minimum wage of Montana, and that's what we had to pay the kids. And then we found them, rooming as best we could and board and took care of all that. So limitations, sure, there were. But I don't think anything anything crazy compared to other indie ball teams that they have.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Nick, do you have anything else that you want to roll toward before I go too far down my own rabbit hole? As I do.
Okay. Keep going down the rabbit hole. Keep going. I'm not going to stop.
Fantastic.
My dog loves rabbits, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, then what a pod for him. So I'm going to move because I feel like we're really harping on the Billings setup. Meanwhile, we got the whole Yolo Highwheelers conversation that has to happen here. So
yeah.
I mean, how does this come about? I know that's a very basic question, but like, were you approached? At what point were you approached about this? I mean, and then what about this, brought you over? I mean, it's not like I guess you have the localish ties from the Giants time, but it is quite a leap to go from your established situation in Billings to the Yolo Highwheelers, and they're cropping up way out on their own island for the Pioneer League and all the challenges that comes with that. So what was it that really pulled you over to this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I was driving home from Billings and talked to Dave, and he said, "Hey, can you give me scouting reports on all of our players? It'd be great." So I got home, and me and AJ knocked out. He did the analytics number side, and I did all the other information, and wrote out about 30 or so scouting reports. Dave gave me a call, and we talked about some things that were opportunities. Said he was going to go a different route and bring Craig in to manage. In a month earlier, I'd had a conversation, and it was with one of my old bosses with the Giants. Just so happens that he was friends with the owners, Paul and Brian.
Okay.
And he was just, gathering information. I remember we were in Ogden, on that 6-game winning streak during that series. And, he just said, "Hey, got a couple of guys who are interested in indie ball. Could you give me some information on what the league's like?" So I gave him like a half-hour dissertation on here's what the league is. And, not knowing that was going to be anything. And then all of a sudden, it was, "Hey, this is an opportunity and Dave even said it. Dave's like, "Hey, they're starting 2 new teams, and this would be a great opportunity for you." And when it came down to it, the money was different. Let's just say it was a much better opportunity for my family, to the point where, we prayed about it, and it was the right move. I mean, I had talked to Rick White in the Atlantic League, and I talked to some Frontier League teams, and I was looking around, but they came with a package also the full autonomy again, like, "Hey, this is your team. We're going to make you the assistant GM as well of player procurement, and you roll with it." So, this for the first time in 4 years since the Giants hired me, I would say it's a wage where my wife and I are comfortable again, because she works full time. Because it's been a grind. I mean, the past 4 years have been a complete grind. 2020 was what it was. 21 I was in Williamsport. And 22, I stayed home and helped run a College Wood Bat League. Instead of going, I had some indie ball offers to go as an assistant coach and decided not to. And then 23, the Billings job, but none of those jobs were paying me anywhere near what the Giants paid me. And now this one does. And it was, and Paul and Brian are great. They have so much passion for this. And they've got a lot on their plate, owning two teams, and they're doing a good job, man. They're grinding and working their butts off. So yeah, it just came down to the fact where Dave and I had a very professional conversation, and he thought he said, there's two teams. It's a great opportunity. I called up the league office and they said, yes, you're very high on our list if you're not going to go back to Billings. And they said, we want you to talk to these owners. So I did, and it happened really quick. I mean, our season ended, I don't know, let's just say September 21st ish, third week of September. And I had a job offer with them in early August. And I started working, I want to say first part of October, I started calling players, starting right away. And I'll say this because I'm a man of my word. I called everybody I could that wasn't a Pioneer League player, because as of October 15th, they became free agents. So I didn't call anyone from that league. I called a ton of other people knowing they were free agents and just started getting after it.
And I see, actually one of the things that jumped out at me was the fact that AJ came over with you as well, from Billings.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I've known AJ since he was 10 years old.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's great. Cause my main thought was, oh, cool. Like that rhythm y'all were in at the end of last year, that's great. It continued. I didn't know it went so much further than that. So now I got to ask, how'd that all come together? Just knowing each other so long and now working together.
Yeah. AJ's awesome. I mean, he played in our that league I talked to you about off air that we did, that bridge league. He in the winter, he was part of that league. He did baseball lessons with me. His parents are awesome. They're from Michigan, so God's country. So, that always is a good connection where I'm from originally. And, we stayed in contact. He went actually to Michigan to go play at a Division III school. It didn't work out. He came back. My sons were both playing club baseball, and he was coaching with that. I was helping out as well. And I told him I got the job in Billings. He was like, oh my gosh, it's my dream job to be in baseball. I want to be in the front office. I want to be a scout. And I was like, well, let me make a phone call. And they gave him a small salary, and he literally learned on the fly how to do stuff. Like he was doing the TrackMan. He learned all that. He was on the air sometimes as the color guy. He would do all of our scouting as far as it came down to like scouting the other team. Like he was all the numbers basically. He didn't help out with any like player procurement stuff, but he did all the numbers in the background. And it's funny, he texted me yesterday because he's a huge fan of the Moneyball movie. His thing is every year he watches it the day before opening day.
Okay.
So he was texting me some stuff about, the whole a Jonah Hill scene, and he was laughing about it. So yeah, he's just a great kid who's loyal, who knows the way I work. He knows how intense I am and how hard I work. And so it's a good person to bring on board. And, our new general manager, Troy Laporco, is awesome. He's with the Giants for, I think, at least 5 years in AAA, on the sales side. And he's going to give AJ even more responsibilities. So, he's a fantastic kid.
I'm trying to think back. I don't know many other people who were like, yeah, I knew him since he was 10. Now we're working together in the front office. That's an interesting connection.
Well, and really quick, and Connor Denning was on our team. I've known him since he was like 8.
Okay.
He played in that league as well.
Well, I mean, if he's not playing with you, he can't play against you because no one's gonna have a scouting report quite like you do. So
Connor Denning, I'll tell you what, if he was in a different city and not where they hit 25 homers a season, he was an all-star. He was probably one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, the constant struggle there of trying to figure out what stats mean in this league. That's a different conversation entirely. Nick, do you have any thoughts on YOLO since I kind of brought us over to this side of things?
I definitely got somewhere to go with that, although I will say, just commenting on Pioneer League stats, we did this all last night when we were doing the review, and I kept looking at guys like, he hit over 300. I mean, how could that not be good? I mean, every league hitting over 300 is good. And then you look at everybody else, and you're like, oh, wow, most of this team's hitting over 300. And it's like, he's still good. It's still great. It's like such a weird thing to like try to put in perspective Pioneer League numbers, because everywhere else you look at what they did and like, this is all-star level. And then you look and you go, well, actually, most of the team did this too. So it's like, it's so weird to me with the elevation change as part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it this way. I wouldn't I think batting average is one thing, but it's the power numbers.
Yeah.
Like, look at Grand Junction. They had fantastic offense. I mean, you got guys hitting 25 homers. Would they hit 25 homers in Billings? I don't know. I mean, Billings actually, I think, is a pretty normal park. If you ask anyone in the league, I'd say Billings is one of the most normal. Like, the numbers are true. Like, John Michael Fail would have hit. If he'd have played, his numbers, by the way, were only a half season. Yeah. If he starts the season out and he's in Grant, he hits 40 homers. I mean, it's the power numbers are the big divider there, in my opinion. And there's certain, the Colorado States, those teams are going to have some higher numbers. Ball's going to fly more. In Montana, it's going to fly a little bit too, but just depends. Like you guys, I mean, Ryan, you talked about, the park dimensions and different things. The park factors is a better term to use. More true numbers I would get out of Billings.
Yeah, I'd honestly say, it is typically, at least from the numbers I have, the most pitcher friendly park right now in the league, which is for sure interesting to say pitcher friendly in any environment in the Pioneer League. I feel like, but so you put a little asterisk
until you get to Yolo.
That is true, because I said I did what I could with the numbers, but like that kind of scaled out like flat even, which could be interesting. I don't know though. You know more about the ballpark than I do.
You're looking at like 410 to center, 375 in the gaps, 320 or 330 on the corners, and sometimes the wind blows in, according to Tommy, who's the head coach at UC Davis. So we can talk about this too. You guys, again, this is your pod, but I definitely went after a certain type of player when we started recruiting.
That's actually where I was going to go with this. Was now that you're not in a mountain environment anymore, and you're in one of the locations that's more closer to sea level, how does that affect the way you go after pitchers? Or does it make it easier to go after pitchers that may think like, okay, this isn't like playing most of my games in Colorado. I'm going to play most of my games in California between Oakland and Davis now. So I guess roster construction is really the direction I'm aiming with this.
Yeah. So actually it's funny, because as I was starting this new chapter of my coaching career, a buddy of mine who was with the Twins he's a scout. He was like, hey, you know what you're doing, and I think for me, I always want to take advice from everyone, and I may not always accept it or listen to it. Or actually I'll listen to it, but I may not, take that advice on. But for me, he was like, hey, you got to build the team through the middle. And I was 100% in agreement, and I went after pitching hard right away. And the more people I talk to, for me, you build through the middle, and it's catching, it's pitching, middle infield, and center field. And so I went after those positions as hard as I could. Learned about the ballpark itself. And knowing that the way it plays, we went after pitching pretty hard. Also knowing the dynamic of our league and it going down to where instead of being able to have 3 years of experience and then a 4th year in the league, now it's 2 years experience and a 3rd year in the league. We felt that we were going to go a certain route with the way that we really went out and recruited. And I went after some really kind of high-end Pioneer League players starting October 15th. Yeah. And a lot of them wanted to go somewhere else. They wanted to go American Association or Frontier League. So once I kind of saw they were not coming to us, I just went harder after the MLB Draft League and some Frontier League guys that didn't produce, and still brought on some Pioneer League players, but really went hard elsewhere and really wanted to find the good catching, as many shortstops as I could possibly gather, knowing that they up front tell them, hey, I'm bringing in multiple shortstops. So just so you know, be the best one. But you can play second or third, this would be great. And then finding those shutdown center fielders, because the gaps are pretty big there.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And also really pitching is the thing that you have to get early on, because it's so hard to replace. I mean, we talk about all the time that pitching really is like the jewel of all indie ball, because everyone's always trying to find it. So if you can get it early on, you can survive a little bit better when, we get into May and June and we start seeing guys getting their contracts purchased, and, you always want to see them go on to, further their dream, further their career. But it does make it a little bit tougher when you lose 2 of your 3 best pitchers in the middle of the season, then got to try to find a replacement for them.
Yeah. So right now we got 15 pitchers coming into camp, and 5 of those are lefties. 9 of the 15 are starters. And, and 3 of those guys they know, like all of them know, like, hey, if we feel like these are the top 6, we're going to go 6-man rotation, Jerome Williams is our pitching coach. He's fantastic. He's
Yeah.
better than advertised. We're planning on going 6-man to start the season out. We actually did a 6-man the whole entire season in Billings, and it worked out. So these guys know, hey, at the end of spring training, if we don't feel like you're one of the top 6, send you the bullpen, or we can, if you want to go home, or get traded, we can try to facilitate that. So for us, we went after a lot of starting pitching. The other 6 guys that are relievers, they are straight up relievers. Went after a handful of closers as best we could. So I think we got 3 or 4 guys who can really shut down 7, 8, 9, like the normal MLB team right now. Get your guy to go 6, and then 7, 8, 9, shut it down. So we feel very comfortable right now with the guys who are coming in. A mixture of guys who played professional baseball last year with either like a Sansone, who put up great numbers with the Rays, but didn't throw hard enough because they want to see 94 out of a lefty. But put up disgusting numbers in A-ball. A couple of guys from Billings that came over, 3 pitchers from Billings that came over. And again, Brandon, by the way, since we're talking about ties, Brandon McPherson, he wins by knowing him since he was 2 years old. So I worked for the White Sox in 2003, and his father and I were teammates in college, and I lived with them that summer.
Okay.
So yeah, so Brandon is a kid that came over to us, and then Cameron Rapetti is another guy, and Jacob Stobart, a lefty. So yeah, we feel pretty confident right now in our pitching staff. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, no,
You're not scouting at T-ball games. Okay, that's good, because I was a little bit like, that's a lot of guys who are getting in the pipeline young, but okay, it makes more sense now. All right. Oh man. Okay. I was like, how? All right. Nick, what you got, man?
I was about to say, this is starting to turn into like me during the summer, because I work teaching kids golf lessons. So I joke like, yeah, I'm recruiting for my old high school and see who I can get to wind up going there in like 3 or 4 years.
The old Nick Firestone pipeline.
Yeah, hey, trust me, I could fix that golf program. It is not good, but that's a different story. That's a different situation. The way I want to go with it is, you mentioned that you were in the draft league for a little bit. You were coaching in Williamsport. Does that kind of give you a better sense on the quality of talent that's in the draft league? Because I know we've talked a lot about it on the show in the past, and we're never really sure what to make of that league and the quality of player that's there and where things tend to go on it. So does that experience being there for the year kind of give you a good gauge on how that league produces talent?
A little bit, only because in 21, it was all college players, first half and second half. And the second half now, the past 2 years, they're paying the guys.
Yeah. So
a little bit, yes. When I look at it this way, one of our players last year, he played in the draft league in 22. And he told me on a given night, he didn't see a gigantic difference between a Pioneer League game. Again, it depends on who's pitching and who you're facing. But like, it wasn't like it was like you're facing all of a sudden, like you go from the MLB draft league to the Pioneer League. Like it's a gigantic jump, like AAA to A-ball type of a deal, right? Yeah. So he was like, hey, on a given night, like there's some guys who can really chuck it. There's guys who are good hitters. Like I don't see a gigantic difference. This is definitely a better league overall, but not a huge difference. So that was one reason why I hit the draft league hard. A lot of these guys played Division I. I looked at it this way: who helped us in July? Like Ryan, you talked about it. Who helped us in June? Like they were Division I guys, like Figueredo, who hit 25 bombs at Florida Gulf Coast, right? You got guys that come in and they're Division I players. These guys came in, and a lot of the guys in the draft league, they were Division I players, and they happened to go to the draft league versus going to the Pioneer or going to the Frontier. So those were guys that I really went after. So, you have those layers of the USPBL. Where does that fall? The Pecos League, where does that fall? The MLB draft league. And I feel like the draft league is maybe a tier above the USPBL or right there with it. It's just hard. I've never seen the USPBL players play in a game. I've only seen them come to our league. So, I looked at it this way. I treat that as their first season of pro ball. They played about 40, 50 games in the draft league in the second half, and they played against decent competition. So are they that much better than who was already in the Pioneer League in 2023? And I don't know that they were that much. I don't know the talent level in the Pioneer League was that much greater than someone who played in the draft league in 2023. And that was just what I thought about, was like a guy who played one one season of, let's say, 40 games in the Pioneer League, is he that much better a player than a guy who played 40 games in the MLB draft league, or did he just get noticed and get lucky that he got to our league instead? You know, is it? I mean, I don't know if that's that huge of a difference. And they were accessible and they were ready to go. The Pioneer League guys were like, oh, I might want to go somewhere else. I'm not too sure. And the other guys were like, hey, I'm on board. Let's do this.
Yeah. So it's more or less just the circumstance that for each of the player that found themselves there. And the draft league guys have the different mindset of just, I was in the draft league. I want to continue on. This kind of like is the next progression to go to one of the more, I guess, lack of a better term, but established partner leagues. So
correct.
They kind of a different perspective going to the Pioneer League versus a guy that may have either just been recently released from affiliated ball or is coming off of like a Frontier League season that wasn't what they were expecting. And they still have that kind of hope of like, maybe I could catch on somewhere and on the other leagues. It's just a mentality thing.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, when you start recruiting February 1st, that's a tough, that was tough, man. So when I can start recruiting October 1st and I got, you know, a 4-month head start, I probably spoke to 80 players. I've got my Excel sheets everywhere that I've got on my laptop. And I mean, I've got conversations with all these guys and you start building those relationships with these players. And then I don't just sign somebody. Like I talk to their college coach. I talk to a scout. I sometimes lose guys as I wait a little while. I do. And I'm honest. I mean, I'm a man of faith. I sit there and I pray about it and I think about what I'm going to do. And I wait a couple days and then I may make an offer a week later or maybe a day later. And then it's just a matter of when you sign a guy, it's almost like recruiting a college kid is that, hey, I'm going to go here. Well, I'm going to go there. Well, if you noticed our roster, we got 5 guys from Williamsport and they were all pretty good players in that league. And they, again, it was like, well, I'm going to go there. Well, this is a good opportunity. And the pay is great because we're paying California state minimum wage. So we're paying more than some veterans get in the American Association, you know? So it's like, hey, I can go play. It's a tier up, like you said, from the MLB draft league, and I'm getting paid a lot of money and I'm going to get a place to stay. So, and I've got some people, some familiarity with some guys I played against and I played with. So it really just worked out, and we'll see what happens. You know, we'll have a better idea of what we look like, you know, probably middle of June, end of June.
Yeah. I do wonder too, if being so close to MLB markets in San Francisco and Oakland, if that's kind of an appeal too, because it's like maybe a scout wants to make the easier drive up from, you know, the parent city. And if they're going to be going up by Sacramento to watch the AAA team play, you know, maybe they stop by and they see me play in Davis. It's not that far of a drive from there. I wonder if that's something that goes into some of the players' minds too.
This is definitely a selling point. I mean, for me, you're a salesman and you make sure that you don't overpromise and underdeliver. Because for me, I tell everybody up front how many shortstops we're recruiting, how many pitchers we're recruiting. Here's where you stand. Here's where we're at. And yeah, as one of the selling points, aside from salary and, you know, a place to live, was you got San Jose, you got Sacramento, you got, you know, all these teams in the Cal League. And by the way, you know, our bench coach, Gary Davenport, he was with the Giants for 32 years and he was an Olympic coach. You got Jerome Williams, who played like 14 years in the big leagues and 20 overall. And he was the Mets up to AA, and he was in the draft league. So he knew some of these guys. So it's like, not only do we have a great place to play, it's a league above that where you were at, and you're going to get paid well, but also, Sacramento's 15, 20 minutes away. Why don't, and with our connections, just say, hey, you know what? I know you're going to be in town for this. Why don't you swing by and just watch us? You know? And again, that was all selling point to try to get these players to come over.
Just give them the chance, give them the opportunity to move along and keep their career going. So, and
also with Jerome's background, and for me, like, I feel like the very best coaches, they embrace analytics and they use it as a tool to help communicate with the player. And he and I both have that background. Because after the 20 season, I realized that when I wasn't getting a job, like, okay, how am I not getting a job? And these Division II coaches are getting my old job. Like, what's going on? And I went out and spent I spent money, and I got you know, well versed in Rapsodo and K Motion. You know, I went online and took a course in sabermetrics. I read the MVP machine book. That was a big thing right then and there. And, you know, I learned a lot about it, and I realized it's just a matter of the numbers I already kind of know this stuff, but now I can quantify it and share it with them. So now communication with these players is so huge. It's not a matter of do what I say. how I grew up. It's a matter of, here's why we're doing this, and here's how I can help you. So the best coaches in my mind, they played the game, they've coached, they have a feel for the game, and they embrace the analytics and they use it to help as a coaching tool.
Yeah, because if you can explain anything to the player and you can explain, like, this is why we're doing it. I'm not just telling you to do it for the sake of doing it. I'm telling you because it's going to help you, and this is how it is. A player receives that a lot better because they're like, okay, I see why he's doing what he's doing, the reasoning, I see the method. When you can fully understand why something's happening, it becomes a lot easier to take it to heart, digest it, and then make a genuine attempt to implement it into your game.
It's very much a why generation.
Yeah.
Like, why? When I was growing up, I mean, I'm older than you guys. It was do it because I said so. And now it's like, we know why. And then they can always go on their, they can go on their phones and look up all the hitting gurus and the pitching gurus and all that kind of stuff and get lost in it down, as Ryan said, down the rabbit hole, all they want. For us, it's like, hey, we genuinely care about you as a man, as a human being. Like, I want what's best for you. I'm a very open book. I tell the players openly, I love you guys. And I really do. When I've cried privately when I've released a guy. Actually, we released a guy who went to the MLB. He actually found him a job in the MLB draft league. And then he came back and helped us out in the playoffs, at the end of the season. He was with us. He was a college player in 2023. He played for us, didn't perform well enough, got him a job in the MLB draft league. And then when their season ended, he came back and helped us out. Yeah. And I cried when I'd released the guy. I mean, I've been on the other end of it too many times. Like, I'm an emotional person who loves these guys. I sometimes I don't do a good job of the Billy Bean of like separating, because it's hard when you're a manager, and you're also front office, like the players, they can get kind of nervous once in a while. Like, oh, what's this? This guy can literally determine my fate. Yeah. And I just want them to understand, like, hey, allow your game to be dictated what you do on the field, not off the field. And we're going to judge you based on what you're doing on the field and give you a chance. And I think I don't know about the transactions, Ryan, you would know, but I think that we were probably on the lower end of transactions, or at least middle of the pack in Billings versus other teams in our league. Like, we only had, I think it was 47 total players that played for us in our league for our team last year. It was somewhere in that 45 range. So, we gave guys a chance to play and prove themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, part of the flip side, though, is too, if you're both the front office and the manager, you see everything, though, too. So it's like, look, I know what you guys are doing on and off the field. I see the work you're putting in or not putting in. So if you're doing everything right and you're getting the results, you have nothing to worry about. And I know which guys are genuine good guys that are really putting out their effort. And even if it doesn't work out here, the guys that are generally putting their heart and soul into this, I'm going to do the best I can to not just leave you in the wind. I'm going to try to at least, do what I can to maybe set you up for something else. So that way you're not just on your own.
For sure. I mean, I would say almost every single player that we released, we tried to trade them first. And then I would call other teams and say, hey, here's somebody you should consider. And I don't want anything for them. So if you don't, trust the fact that we do a player game later and then never ask you for anything, like, just know this guy's out there. And, and my wife saw that, and she saw my heart that I was really trying to help kids out. And, cause again, I didn't always get that when I played, when you're an indie ball player, it's, you're on your own. Sometimes you don't usually have an agent.
Yeah. It can be a cold world when it's just you.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I lived that for sure in the late 90s. But it taught me a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't want to monopolize too much. I know we've taken already a lot of your time. I don't want to take any more of it than we have to. So Ryan, if you have anything else you want to throw out there, I only have about one or two questions really that immediately come to mind that I want to go for. So I'll let you put a break in this for now if you want to go for it.
I mean, you actually hit on a lot of stuff that I was sort of thinking about going towards. That's why I was just letting you ride there for a while.
Awesome. Awesome.
I mean, it does always interest me, this sort of task of assembling a fully new roster. I think it's just one of the craziest things, and so unique to indie ball to have to just go, from here are 0 players and now go ahead and make that roster. So that's a fascinating challenge first and foremost. But I mean, you mentioned, kind of how the priorities fall with that. How, when it, how can you set reasonable expectations going into something like that? I mean, you already know that, things can be pretty rocky in the beginning and still be fine. So that at least is something you have in mind. But, it's hard. I don't need to tell you how hard it is to bring in that many players and assemble a solid roster on day one. What kind of expectation do you set within the front office, and what kind of expectation you set with the players to sort of be taking on this very unique and also slightly intimidating 96 game schedule with a fully brand new group of guys?
Yeah, again, great question, Ryan. It's for me it was different because there was no front office. I mean, I was the first employee hired by the Yolo Highwheelers, and we didn't even have a name yet. Like, we were just the Northern California baseball team.
Yeah.
So, try to sell that to a player. Hey, we don't exist. Right. Here's where we're going to play, we think. And here's what I have for you. We don't have a logo. We don't have anything.
It's a perfume commercial. You're just selling a scent, essentially. You kind of get the idea of what we're doing. It's brutal.
The Emperor's New Clothes. If you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so for me, there was no one to go to. And Brian and Paul are awesome, but they were busy. So I just it was one of those things, there was no one else to go to. So for me, I went to, like I said before, I went to my Rolodex, called everybody up and went after it, and just built the team that the best I could, where I really wanted these guys. I wanted them to play for us and represent Davis. So it was different than Billings, only it was similar in the fact where Matt was a new GM. So he had to focus on, and he was hiring new front office personnel. So he left me alone. The difference now is that I'm the one signing the contracts. I'm the one sending everything out. I'm the one helping out with social media. And we had fun with it this year too. I mean, we're doing a bunch of, the videos. If you guys saw any of those on Instagram, it was a lot of dad joke videos. We just had fun with it. We're trying to sell to the community that this is a fun loving, family oriented, it's going to be low cost place to come. Trust us that you're going to want to be here. And by the way, can you open up your homes and let these guys stay with you? Let a stranger 24-year-old man come live with you and your family. Right. But here's who they are. And, the guy, and you see them on video, and they're like, hey, I'm so excited to come. And then you see me doing some dumb video where I'm in a rice bucket, or I'm in the pool and my kid flips me over, or, my kids are stealing snacks in the pantry and I'm turning the lights off and on. And so just all these different things we're having fun with. But with the recruiting process, again, it was extremely difficult because you're literally selling something that doesn't even exist. But you're showing them your heart. And I was just telling them, here's my background. Here's who I am. Here's my track record. Here's what we've done. And, again, we don't talk about winning, but those 8 years with the Giants, that meant something. We had over 600 winning percentage those 8 years in rookie ball when I was there. We knew how to win. We knew how to go out there and compete. We know how to teach baseball. And so for me, it was just a matter of you're talking to so many people because there's going to be no's. In sales, I have a degree in marketing. I was taught for every 100 people you talk to, you're going to get 10 sales, 10% return rate. So thankfully it was a higher return rate than that, because I talked to probably 80 so players. So we ended up signing 29, but you're selling them on what we have. And then you're trying to bring in the best people possible. And I've been very fortunate right now to have owners who are, they're very on board with everything. They're supportive. Troy is an amazing GM, but he didn't get hired till January. We got a great staff members coming in on the coaching staff members. We have some good front office people that are coming in now, but it's a grind. And I'm trying to answer your question well, is that I'm trying to bring in people who they produce runs on the offensive side. They limit runs on the pitching side. And after doing a background check on them with their coach, with their college coach or their pro coach or a scout that saw them, I'm comfortable bringing them in as an individual that's going to represent our town. Because all those things mean something to me. They really do. There's plenty of guys out there. I get a phone call or an email every day from a player, every day from either an agent, a scout, or a player. Every day it's either a text, an email, or a phone call. And the guys we brought in, we made some mistakes. I don't know, but we feel like we're bringing in 29 really, really good young men who are talented.
Which helps, by the way. That's also one way to win over the
number
community.
One. You can be a great guy all you want, but if you can't play, you can't play.
Yeah, that's gonna the returns will be limited. Last one I've got, and something that always interests me talking to managers is I feel like every manager I've ever talked to has at least one thing, which is something that I watch isn't really even baseball related to like find out if it's a guy that I kind of want on my team. Is there anything like I had one manager tell me like he's always watching like who's around just pick up balls after BP or whatever the case may be, or who hops in the cage to clean up someone else's, even if he's not invested in let's get this moving. Is there anything that sort of you keep an eye on? You tend to, not to give away all the trade secrets here, but that kind of clicks with you of like that might be a guy to keep in mind that's maybe my kind of guy to put on this roster.
Yeah, when they're obviously when you're recruiting, it's hard. You don't see that in person, right? You're asking those leading questions, asking about I'm asking their college coach, is he show up early and stay late? Is he a good teammate? All these things, because when you're on our squad, I'm looking for guys that are showing up early, guys that are doing the things you're talking about, they're good teammates, right? They're good human beings, for Pete's sake. Like they're others minded, right? They're thinking about how can I, even though I am out here competing against not only these other players and other teams, but my own teammates, even for playing time, possibly. They're servant leaders in a way, right? They look, that's the way I've transformed my coaching style, is that I'm a servant leader. I want to try to serve these players. It's not about me anymore. It's about them, right? And watch for players doing that. Like they're picking up the baseballs. They're going in there and getting extra work. They are, during batting practice, they're actually going out there. I told them like, hey, when we're taking batting practice, you got your guys if you have 3 groups, you have guys that are hitting live on the field, you have guys that are running bases, and you have guys taking live reads in the outfield. Pitchers shag. You guys are out there taking your live reads. I want to see that they're working on their footwork, that they're taking it seriously, that they only got to do, 4 at first, 4 at second, 4 at third. And those are live reads on the bases. Like, are you doing that? Or are you going through the motions? Are you trying to work on the things we've worked on during our practice sessions? When you're a grinder that like I am, and the way I was my entire life, you want to surround yourself with people who work hard. And again, it's that small circle that you have, right? You want to spend 4 months with this guy, right? Yeah. Like I want to spend 4 months with you. And if it gets to a point where I don't want to spend any more time with you, then you got to go. Even if you're doing really well in the league and I can get something for you, but you're just not that good of a dude, like we'll find somewhere else for you. And it's just the way it is. Like there's sometimes we would, have to get rid of a player, in years, not just maybe necessarily in Billings, but other years, because it's just not a fit. Like when we drafted our player in Florida, because we have the Florida draft and the Arizona draft for the Pioneer League, where every team has to, unless you trade your pick, you have to draft somebody. The player we signed wasn't necessarily someone that we needed, because we felt really good, like where we were at. Like we didn't really know what we needed. We had, we had like 25, 26 guys signed. And we looked at it like this kid, we felt Marcus Judd, we felt he just fit our culture, and culture is hard to build when you're 1,000 miles away from everybody. Right. But we're on our group meets, we're sending out text messages. We're doing all these things, and we're trying to build this family community. He was a kid who somebody got hurt during BP at the Florida camp. His knee buckled. Marcus Judd ran from second base and tried to help him. And I was like, oh, that was interesting. And then you start learning more about him, about his family's background. And then you have to make a decision in only 3 days. And, he had a good heart and he was a good player. And it was like, hey, even though maybe his numbers weren't tremendous in professional baseball, like I think he's going to come in and be able to compete for that 26th roster spot that we have in our league, you get 25 roster spots. And then the 26th man can come from an official Pioneer League tryout. He fit, in my mind, our culture the best out of all the people that were there with the 8th overall pick. So that's why we chose him versus somebody else. And if we're right or wrong, we're right or wrong, but I can live with that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Man, I don't envy it, but I like the way you think. But that is the constant head on a swivel thing, man, that sounds so tiring. Just like you could be finding something there. It's hunter and gatherer mentality. I feel like I would be walking through the mall, like anytime someone throws something in a trash can real accurately, I'd be like, hey, you lefty? Like, I just can't imagine the number of places that you have to source talent from and keep an eye on what type of people they are. It's quite an undertaking, my man.
Well, I've worked in a lot of different jobs. We don't have to sit here for hours talking about, working as a night stock boy or a bartender or a waiter all the things I've done, a bouncer 25 pounds ago when I was a little bit bigger and stronger, like all the things I've done working, in a factory. Like I get the chance to go out and wear a jersey, wear a uniform. And that is something that I love. I mean, I worked in a factory and I had, a white jumpsuit and I'm working in an auto manufacturing plant. I didn't love that job. So it's only work if you don't love it. And for me, I'm very blessed to have this position with this team. I love the game of baseball. It's absolutely just stole my heart when I was probably a 7 or 8 year old. And the fact I get to do it for a job and to pay my mortgage being a baseball coach it's amazing. And it's a blessing from God. I love it. I can relate to all of that, man. I appreciate it. Nick, I'll give it back to you before I continue to dig into every bit of the things I'm interested in here, because it's how many times we say this? It's your show, so I won't completely take it over.
I know what you're talking about. Like I said, I only really have one question that's been burning in my mind. So if you have a certain train that you're going on right now, I'm not going to derail that. But
no, you're good, man.
Okay, then I'll ask my one question here, and then I'll go from there. But you mentioned a lot talking about your staff and the guys that you have built with it. I was just kind of curious a little bit on how that staff came together, because it seems like they're a very important part of building this team and are going to be an extremely important part of the success of the team going forward. So I'm just curious on how it all came together.
For sure. So Gary Davenport and I worked together with the Giants for 8 years. We never were actually on the same coaching staff. We did. So in minor league baseball, you have your spring training, and then you have your A, double A, your low A, high A, double A, triple A. Those teams all leave around April 1st, and everybody else stays in this holding tank in Arizona or in Florida for 2 months. And that's where the short season and the rookie ball teams were. And you got about 70 guys, and we're playing games that don't count on the back of their baseball card, but it counts in their development, right? Yeah. So Gary and I were together in 2013 and 2014 because I was a hitting coach in Arizona and he was the manager in Salem Kaiser. Okay. So we spent a lot of time together. One thing I love about Gary is that, one, it was easy. It was easy because he lives in Sacramento. So it's right there. Mm-hmm. And number two, he was like my kids, or he's a baseball lifer. Like his dad, Jim Davenport, is in the Hall of Fame for the Giants. He's a third baseman, right? He hung out with, he's childhood friends with Barry Bonds, McCovey, Mays, all these guys, they were there playing with his dad. So he is a baseball rat, right? I mean, he's been around it, and he loves my kids, right? And my kids are, they're in the dugout. Connor's our bat boy, and, Bryce is, helping out as well. And so that connection was huge. I wanted to bring him over to Billings, actually, but he had just had knee surgery and it wasn't going to work. Mm-hmm. So once I got the job in Sacramento, actually in Davis, I should say, I called him pretty early on and said, hey, here's the situation. So, and the fact is too, I was a utility player, so I can coach anything, really. I really can, but I think my catching's number 1 and outfield's number 2 for me. And I would say infield's number 3. And he's an infield coach. He's been an infield coordinator, infield rover. He's got a good background in infield. So that was a great fit there as well. Not only is he a great human being, he's he's such a hard worker, but he also has that infield background, and he's local. So instead of them having to pay me to fly up and go to a Little League event or something like that, Gary can jump, in his car and drive 30 minutes. So that was that connection. And then Jerome Williams, we had connected on LinkedIn, and we didn't really say much back and forth, just a little bit of pleasantries here and there. And then I was talking to Dave Tremblay, And Dave was the manager in State College the past 2 years in the draft league. And he and Tom Troublehorn, who I referred to earlier, they were good friends. They coached together with the Brewers and the Cubs. I was talking to him about some players on the team. And I said, hey, what about Jerome? And he said, he is a fantastic person and he knows analytics. He knows he's got great communication skills. He's super, super organized, and I am very organized to a T, which some people may not love, but I very much have things in the order that I want it to be. And I don't ever want to be out prepared. And again, going back to Boise, we were out prepared in Boise, and I was out managed in Boise by Gary, and I don't ever want that to ever happen again. And Jerome, he's already got stuff he's written down, and he knew the draft league players, and he's been a major league pitcher. He's in Southern California, so it's a quick jump for him. His family can go up and visit him. So all those things came together, and he knows the game. And I mean, he was drafted as an 18-year-old. Baseball is his university, like he says. Yeah. So he's, I mean, the fact that you see indie ball, staffs that I was able to bring on, Gary and Jerome that have 60 years of experience in pro baseball is a huge. It's huge for us because I'm only as good as the men I surround myself with, and good leaders, they bring in guys who are smarter than them.
Yeah, and it complements the style that you try to run, and they have the cultural fit, and it works both on and off the field to have guys like that. And it is impressive that you managed to get guys that, like you said, have 60 years of experience between the two of them to form this staff that looks to be a very formidable managerial and coaching staff thus far.
Well, the coaching staff is good. The managerial, that's a question mark. He's a B minus.
That ranking is going to haunt us
every time.
The thing is, we prepped for that last night too, where we're like, "What we give him again?" We got to go back and check that.
You know what? I was happy. I'm fine. I was happy. Completely happy. I'm good.
We better never have Matt Roush on because he will not be as happy.
I love to have fun. I mean, during the game, I'm pretty focused, I would say, but off the field, again, if you saw the videos on Instagram, that's kind of my wife's like, no one really knows who you are. Like at home, I'm just a big goofball, but when it comes to the game, like I am intense, and I want to. Most I don't talk about it. I want to win every game.
Yeah, it's just that ranking. It's the way to have it. Yeah, no, it's definitely the way to have it. To know when you have to take things seriously and when it's like, look, we're still playing a game here. We're still got to have fun with it.
I'll give you guys this too. Yeah. Again, and this was, your show. You guys run it the way you want. Maybe if you have the time next year to do 2 leagues and then 2 leagues the next show, because you guys were punch drunk. It was probably 3:30 in the morning, and you guys gave the Pioneer League 11 minutes.
Yeah, that was,
and it was like, hey, all the managers, they're all like they all give them like, I don't know, a C, and then like Schlacht, he's awesome, and then it's like boom. I was like, okay, well, if they gave us maybe 30 minutes, they could have delved a little more, but like I can't blame you. It reminded me of my freshman year of college, like literally staying up all night and then failing the test the next day because I was so exhausted.
There was definite. Like, I think we can knock it out in a night. And then we realized we're halfway through and we'd been already thought we'd be done. And we're like, well, okay, this might have been a bad idea, but we're just not the brightest bulb. So we're going to go.
Yeah. Right, see, the problem is we got really bogged down in the Atlantic League for way longer than it should have. Yeah. I wonder why that was the case, Mr. ALPV Roundup.
Hey, man.
This is me dodging responsibility real quick, but don't worry about that.
Maybe you do the Atlantic and the American together, and then the next day or next week you do the Frontier and us, so we're not little brother getting kicked in the teeth all the time because we're just the 4th MLB partner league. But it's what it is. No big deal. You guys are East Coast guys, and East Coast bias, and no big deal.
Yeah.
There's the allegation.
Yeah.
You can easily go to to a Barnstormer game. Or Stormers, it's hard for you to come all the way to, come to Yolo and watch a game. I get it.
I might be taking a West Coast swing this year.
Let's go.
I'm working on it. Hey, I already sound like I'm going out to a Pecos game, so I might as well just start the rounds out there, right? So
wait, yeah, you
we
told
will
me about that
discuss
one. Okay, yeah.
We'll discuss that.
Okay. Yeah, Ryan, you have anything else left here before we go way off the rails?
No, and I have no defense of what that was. I mean, we listened back to the podcast last night. We were like, oof. We were, I was like, it sounded like we were in slow motion at this point. That's good to know. Okay. Going to brush that one off. No, I just really appreciate you being here. This was a fascinating conversation. This is like such unique. It's so unique to have somebody on who has had such success and such a long background and a varied background. And then is also going on straight from that successful, season into this incredibly unique challenge. So I'm really glad that we were able to catch up with you and talk about this. I just really appreciate that.
Oh, for sure. Again, I enjoy listening to the show. There's times where you guys have these 2-hour shows, so I'll listen to half.
That's fair.
That's the way to go about it.
Again, I lift. I love lifting weights, but I don't need to listen to crazy music anymore when I lift weights. So I'll pop you guys on and I'll listen to it while I'm working out, and I'm like, okay, I'm 3 hours is a long time, so I'm going to go ahead and knock this out in chunks. And but no, again, you guys are doing a great job. I think independent baseball is it's funny because you talked about this on your pod as well. Like, how'd you find yourself in it? I never wanted to coach a day in my life. I wanted to play till I was 40, retire, and call it a day. Never wanted to coach. Wasn't a guy in college who looked for to be a teacher and a coach. Never wanted to, ever. But I fell into it and I love it. And how did I find indie ball? I never searched for an indie ball job ever in my life until, maybe the end of 2019 when I wasn't getting jobs with the MLB team. And now it's a great, Schlack's got such a heart for indie ball. Yeah. It's like a second chance. And I think about it, that was my second chance. Yeah. So, it keeps me home longer. I can spend time with my family more. They have access to the field. So it's a great place. We'll see what happens over the course of my career, whether it's long-term or not, but I'm really, really enjoying it. And I'm thankful that you guys are putting such a positive light to it, because it's not very many people are.
Yeah. That's what really got me to do, is that I saw it was a space where I was like, this is really fun and really entertaining. And what always got me was, on this level, everyone's trying to win. And that's the one thing that always held me up with affiliated minor leagues. I was like, the games matter, but it's really like, we're here to develop players. That's what the goal here is. On the independent level, it's like, look, it's wins and losses. Everyone here is, trying to get signed, but that means you're playing your best players. You're doing your absolute best. You're working 100% every day to try and get a win and try to do the best you can. And if you're not performing, you're just gone. And that's how it is. And that's the kind of thing that always gets me, is if I'm watching a game where I know the win and loss doesn't really matter, I can't get myself into it. I need to know that this matters, right? And so that's the appeal for me. And that's why I really started on all of this. It's just, I felt like it needed a brighter spotlight to be in. And I know it's not much, but it's something, and that's, you do what you can.
Well, I appreciate it. And also a testament to this too, is that the one thing that aggravates me and not that you said it, but people say that, like college and pro is so different because they don't care about winning, and in professional baseball. And you didn't phrase it that way, but that is a very ignorant way to look at like affiliated baseball. Like, that we don't care. Like, trust me, with the Giants, it mattered. Like, we part of teaching a player is teaching them how to win. It's part of the development process. It is, yes, your guys who get more of a signing bonus, they're going to play more, whether they're playing well or not. We're trying to, but when it comes down to it, we want to also teach them like how to win. And part of it was, sometimes people would say, like, the old adage is that y'all get the first 6 innings and then the last 3 we're going to step in if we have to. And we're going to step in, and we're going to step in as coaches. And, we always, and for me, like, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. And I love the fact that winning does matter. And I will say this to say about the 38 major league teams. Yeah. I don't think there's one player on any one of those teams that is okay with losing a game.
Oh yeah. No, you can't be. You don't make it that far.
They definitely want to. And the coaches want to win. It's just a matter of they have the constraints sometimes of these guys have to play, where in indie ball, nobody has to play.
Yeah.
Nobody has
to. It's what you earn. It's what you get.
Yes.
That's the appeal. So we appreciate coming on, as we always do around here. As a regular listener, you would know, You come on, you get 5 minutes at the end to say what you want to say, promote what you want to promote, go back to something we talked about that maybe we went over too quick, or bring up a topic that we didn't get to that you wanted to discuss. So 5 minutes, here you go. Take it and run with it.
So I would say the one thing that helped prepare me for this season were guys that I played for, like Cash Beecham. You know, what an opportunity to manage against somebody that I played for. Or Tommy Thompson, again, a guy I was managing against him. You know, when I was with the White Sox in spring training as a player in '99, and Tommy was the catching coordinator. So calling those people up and asking them, hey, how can you help me? And it takes that back seat of I'm competing against you. I want to beat you, but like, hey, under my wing, here's how we go. And like all these managers, like we all talk, and a lot of us have become friends. And we're trying to help each other out. And our heart really is for the players to help find jobs. And yeah, I want to beat all 11 of these teams. I do. And you're going to keep some stuff back, right? But going to people like Bob, like Cash, that helped me and helped really, again, I would be very ignorant to say that I built this roster. All the other people, the scouts and the coaches and the front office executives and my former managers, all these people that gave me input on how to build a roster. You know, I don't deserve the credit. All these people were part of it. And so for me, I'm just so thankful for all the men that have been in my life that have helped me along the way. You know, it's funny because look back to your high school coaches and your college coaches, pro coaches that have been there and seeing how proud they are of the moment that we had in 23. It was great. Again, it was awesome. And for me, I'm thankful for the opportunity. I want to thank as well, you know, the opportunity to be on here and to talk more about YOLO. Really, I mean, the fans in YOLO, we're really excited about coming. We're looking forward to the opportunity there. We're hoping that some of you will open up your homes for our players so that we have a place for them to live. Otherwise, you know, we'll find a place for them. You know, we're going to get something for them to house these guys. And, you know, we're looking forward to people coming out to the ballpark. You know, for me, again, you know, I'm a man who wants to be a good example to people. So I guess if I were to promote, you know, my website, billyhorton.com, it's just a place where I write, and I write in a way that I want to encourage men to be the best version of themselves. It's kind of cliche, but I write from the heart. Yeah. And life's hard, man. I mean, shoot, we all got kicked in the teeth. And sometimes, you know, when a guy just sits there and shows their, they put their guts out there, and they're like, hey, they're transparent. I love transparency in people that you can show who they are. And, you know, people at my church are amazing, you know, men who have helped me become a better husband and father. And these guys are transparent, and they show when the difficulties in their life. And, you know, so for me, it's really these coaches and these men have just kind of built me into the person I am. And it helps me be a better husband, better father, and a better leader, as a manager. So, all those things, you know, for me, I'm just thankful for the opportunity again. And you look at your life stages of what prepared you for this, you know, starting the company that we own, Cactus Athletics. We've been doing baseball camps and clinics and lessons for kids since 2006, starting that from the ground up, having a business card, walking to Little League fields, literally not having anyone for a client and just hoping someone would give you an opportunity. That prepared me for the next opportunity. And then being with the Giants, and then, you know, running extended spring training, that all that responsibilities, it prepares you to be a manager. And then, you know, the opportunity with Billings prepares you for the opportunity now to build this roster with all this help in YOLO. So all these life stages have got us to the point now to where this prepared me for this. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? I just got thrown in the deep end. No, like I know how to swim. Like it's just a matter of just grinding and working hard and like realizing that it's not just about me, and having a really good support group. Like my wife, Taleen's amazing. My boys, Connor and Bryce, are outstanding. You know, it's awesome to have a baseball wife who can sit down and break down a game after the game. I mean, she was a trainer for the Cubs back in the day, and you know, so she knows the game, and it's cool to be able to be a part of this. Yeah. And thank you again for you guys. I mean, you guys, again, It's fun to be here. It's fun to joke around with you guys. It's fun to throw jabs, left and right. I see how you guys go back and forth. So just it's having fun with this.
Exactly. It's at the end of the day, we're all part of a game, and you gotta have fun with it. You gotta know when to take it seriously, but you gotta have fun with it, because otherwise, like you said, it turns into work if you're not enjoying it. You're not loving what you're doing. So appreciate everything you did. We appreciate you coming on the show, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially on a busy weekend, to hop on and talk some baseball with us for a little while.
Yeah, big Easter weekend. I'm going to be. I'm very fortunate. They're going to let me jump in the tank and help baptize some people this tonight at Good Friday service, and then Easter service on Sunday. So a very busy weekend at our home, and this is great. I love talking ball. So thank you so much.
Not a problem. Appreciate you.
Great having you, Billy. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Once again, just like to thank Billy for hopping on the show. We'll be happy to talk to him again when the season gets going. And I think it was a productive conversation, and we got a little bit more insight on both him and the team, and to see where that's all coming together. So be a good conversation to have.
Yes, sir. This is fun, man. We're getting some good guests on. This is great. Getting ramped up.
Exactly. We're getting hyped up. We got like a month until we actually have baseball to talk about too, which means realistically, I think we only have like 2, maybe 3 episodes left of off-season filler.
Yeah, man. I'm interviewing Ross Peoples this week. Teaser. We're getting in there now. We're in there, dude. I'll drop that from us.
Nearly at the start of the grind again.
I know. You can tell I actually decided. I had a come Jesus moment of like, I'm mostly doing content with you, and I'm like, wait, I should just be also doing my own content. Don't be dumb, Ryan. And now,
no. Keep just throwing stuff my way that makes my life easier.
Oh no, it's fine, because what's going to happen is the like excess, because my content's so weird that like where you go and you're like, this content's too weird for me to work with. That's what I work with. So I shove aside all the stuff that's like, this isn't weird enough for my channel. And then it becomes conversation for this channel. So it actually works out great. Good ecosystem we got going here.
We can go ahead and talk about the Pioneer League some more, because we have a Pioneer League review to get to, because we have 2 weeks of Frontier League to do. And that means the Pioneer League's the one that gets shortened, because they are the shortest league.
Yeah. So I don't know where you want to start. I'll follow your lead. I feel like sometimes I like get too worried about where we're going next, and I don't think so. I'm just going to follow. Just following, man.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead, give a quick recap of everything that happened. And I guess we'll just do that thing where we work through the teams, and we can start from the bottom, work our way up, start from the top, work our way down. Because I think when we get to some of like the bottom teams, really like the bottom 2, maybe 3 or 4, then we may get a little repetitive.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So we'll look at the North first. Missoula finished atop the North, a 62-28 record. They had a better first half record by about 4 games than they did a second half record. Glacier finished in second. They were above 500, notably above 500 in the first half, about 16 games actually. But then they finished under 500 in the second half, which wound up biting them in the ass, because Billings wound up going 10 games under 500 in the first half, but then 16 games over 500 in the second half. So our good friend Billy Horton, he managed to get into the playoffs that way. So second half system worked out for him. Then we had Great Falls and Idaho Falls, both notably far under 500 in the second half. So we won't even bother having that discussion. However, we flipped to the South. Ogden won the South, a notably better first half than second half. Boise finished second. Again, better first half than second half. Rocky Mountain, who wound up winning the second half, to really third. Notably better second half than first half. 8 games better, roughly, on the record. Well, I guess more than that, because they were 20-27 versus 28-20. Throwing a lot of numbers out, but just follow along with it.
I got it.
Yeah. Northern Colorado Owls, they wound up finishing in fourth, sub 500 on both halves. And then Grand Junction Jackalopes, the defending champions, they finished dead last in the South. Not really a good first half at 20-28. They rebounded in the second half, but not by much. So there is that. Missoula and Ogden were your champions in the first half, Billings and Rocky Mountain in the second half. Ogden and Billings played for the title, Ogden over Billings to win the title. So that is how it all shook out on the Almanac side of things.
On the Almanac side of things. I feel you now. Yeah, it does have the good sports almanac.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I forgot to do the little bit of trivia I want to do with you. That sucks.
I could do it after this.
Yeah, okay. It's going to be quick. It's only 3 minutes. Checking this. I don't know. Where do you want to start, I guess?
All right. I guess we can
or do we want to comment on more? I wasn't sure how you want to go, but that's on me. I was so locked into like
we've been doing these previews for months.
I know.
And every time, what do I say?
I'm not going to get any smarter, bud. I don't know.
It's free ball.
Pay attention.
Do you have any thoughts on the Almanac portion, or do we want to go into team dissection?
I guess for me, obviously, the big story is the Missoula. And it occurred to me today, I would love to maybe set something up with the parties involved separately, because I'd love to hear perspective on, was this a Missoula failure? Or was this, a success? Did Missoula lose or did they get beat? Type of vibe. Like, was this Billings taking it, or was this Missoula coughing it up?
Oh, we already got the Billings perspective, don't we?
Yeah, well, fair enough. That's a good point. So that's one interview piece down. Go Ryan. And then I can just set up Mike over in Missoula and be like, "Did you hear what he said about you? It's gonna be good. It's gonna be fun."
Wouldn't be the first time they show a star of drama.
Split it up out here, man. Let's have some fun. It's been a long off season. I can't imagine how long the off season feels if we're talking about Montana. Sounds cold.
It is cold out in Montana. So I guess Missoula is kind of the place to go on it. We'll segue into it. That's the thing. Like, they have good regular seasons, and I do believe Michael Schlepp is one of the better managers in this league. We said as much when we did our ranking. I mean, to nearly win 70 games one year and then follow up with 62 is pretty damn impressive in a 95 game season. So you're still winning 2/3 of your games. That's a notable margin there. So that means something. Their pitching was good. Their batting was good. Really the only team in this league that was undeniably good at both of those two areas. Everybody else, I think, had some question marks on one area or another. So, I mean, I can't really critique it. I mean, I suppose I can't really say there's that much of a drop off in production, because realistically, quality of play was about the same, right? I mean, like, over 30 wins in both halves. No, so like,
yeah, they just kind of got.
Yeah, like, it's hard to really say one way or the other. But
and this isn't unique. I mean, we see it a lot. We see the second half team getting the first half team because they're the hot team. I mean, it's more rare to see the team get a wild card after the other team wins both halves, but it is fairly frequent, I would say. I mean, I can look back at it, but it's not shocking when that happens. I was just seeing it. I think it was 2 years ago. Southern Maryland had some ridiculous first half record and then got it just washed out by the end of it. I mean, it was, that year. That was crazy. Southern Maryland did something. 48-18 in the first half for Southern Maryland that year. And then below 500 in the second half. Like, it's hard to keep that going. Or no, they were above 500, but they just got caught by the end. Yeah, man. Second half Stormers. But talking Pioneer League, I guess it's just the way it goes, right? Like, Billings got together as they went, and, Missoula stayed consistent. But, also Billings, they got a lot of shots at Missoula throughout the year, right? I mean, I'm trying to pull schedule.
They
played each other a ton. Throughout the year, they played each other a ton.
Yeah, and Missoula also played a Billings team that was coming off of a 15-game win streak in that second half.
Yeah.
So
that did happen.
When you win 15 in a row, even after it's over, there is a confidence and a swagger that stays with you for the rest of the year, knowing hey, we could just rattle off 2 perfect weeks in a row and it's nothing. So I mean, that definitely means something. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, it is curious though to see kind of a step back in each year. when you get to the postseason, even though the regular season seems to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I hesitate to say it because of just the way the postseason works in the
that's
League.
my feelings.
Yeah, that's just the general consensus among any postseason, right? Unless we're doing like a multi-round best of 7 for everything, you're never really going to get like I don't want to say like a true champion, because you win your league title, you're a champion. That's how it works.
Yeah.
But it also is like when you're playing like 2 rounds of a best of 3 or a best of 3 and a best of 5, like it's really who had a great 10 days.
Really, it is. Yeah. And not to minimize it from anybody's perspective either. I'm not minimizing it. It's so damn hard to win in this sport. But on that same note, I guess, that's 2 sides of it. It's so damn hard to win in this sport. All credit to Billings, and also not going to hold it against Missoula. I've always believed playoffs are pretty much a crapshoot. When teams are that good at that level, for the most part, the biggest win probability you're going to start a game with could be 60%. So like it's very close to a coin flip day to day. So I'm not going to read into it. Missoula, I think, is still, pretty much top dog.
Yeah. I still view them as an exemplary organization. They still absolutely are what do you call them, the class of the Pioneer League, or is that a step too far?
Oh no, I think they're class of the Pioneer League. Yeah.
So I
think it would have been a different argument if Billings went on to win the championship last year. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Just because, you took out the Missoula and you took the crown. With it then losing the next round, I think it's tough to say that, Billings did enough. And I know Billings, you did a lot, I'm aware, and not minimizing it again, but it's just Missoula's with an incredible consistency, almost becoming Quebec-like, except for the end result, which we'll talk again about how freaking good Quebec is, but whatever.
Yeah, we'll hold that off. That's next week's thing when we get to the Frontier League.
I know, there will be a lot of that.
There's going to be a lot of people that turn off as soon as we get to Quebec, because it's going to get bad. Meanwhile, the numbers in La Provence are just going to skyrocket.
22% of their games against each other last year, Missoula and Billings, by the way.
Because you're playing a 5th-year games against them. That's going to...
Yeah, basically. It's familiarity.
Yeah. Meanwhile...
was this the Missoula section, or was this just the...
I was going to make the Missoula section.
Oh, that's fine. I just said, okay, I can talk more about Missoula then, because we didn't really talk about the individual stuff going on there, but they are so good. It's hard to really, when you stack it up. If we're looking just at the offense, offense was, I would say, maybe the least impressive thing. That's fair to say, looking at how they stack up. But they were still 3rd best in the league.
Yeah.
But it pales in comparison to just how much better they were than the league pitching wise. They were a run and a quarter better than any other team. That's remarkable. They were almost 4 runs better than Idaho Falls. Not to pick on Idaho Falls, just to say that's damn good.
Yeah, when you're gawking into a game essentially up 1-0, it makes a difference.
Yeah, that'll help.
It's a little bit demoralizing too as an opposing batter when you're going through the lineup and you're like, it's like we're starting at -1 here.
Yeah, that's kind of fair. Oh yeah, there's just that pressure of like and especially in the Pioneer League now, if you're the pitcher on the other side and you just know based on who you're going up against one of the better offenses in the league. And if you give up, a crooked number, it's probably over. Like it's a good chance you're not coming back in this one. That's tough. There's not many games like that in the Pioneer League, by the way. We talk about it, how the Pioneer League games are never done. If you're up till 2 a.m., you might as well just stay up till 2:30 because this thing could flip.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of works too is like that starts to spread throughout the bench, right? That whole vibe gets through. If in the 3rd inning it becomes a 5-run inning, we're just like, oh, okay.
All right, we're looking at tomorrow now. That's tough.
Yeah. And like even then as like a manager too, when you start to get down towards the stretch here, if you're like, okay, we could be a playoff team or this one may be done, and you got to start managing your team differently. Like, okay, guess who's going to stay out there and give us a couple more innings because we can't burn that bullpen.
That's so big in any ball, man. Games you can just like put away early, like because you literally can like not give up, but you can get a team to kind of call it a day just by putting them in a spot where it just does not seem like a good investment to continue going all in on pitcher usage and things like that. And Missoula, they're one of those teams. there's good ones in every league that can do it, but I think that's a sort of cross-league indie ball skill set for a great team. Just be able to put, foot on the throat and just call it a day.
Yeah, and that definitely works to their advantage on that level, and that's part of the reason they win a lot. It's just that they manage to put the games away, and also, when you're on the other side of it and you're like, okay, we got to work for tomorrow now, you can really start to put that game out of reach and know that like there's no comeback. And even if it does start to happen, it's like, all right, well, we were managing from the 4th inning like this game was done. Now it's the 8th and it became like a 3-run game. Had we managed it differently, maybe it's a tie game, but it ain't. So that's where we're at. So I think that's partially what works to their advantage too. And
so, by the way, it's just general indie ball conjecture. As we see the greater occurrence of the 6-game series, not just the 3-3, more people going with the full 6-game, especially Pioneer League does it. We're seeing it more on the Frontier, and the Atlantic League is doing it a little bit now too. I mean, that's only become more important because look, if you're able to wear down a pitching staff throughout a series, and you might be able to score yourself game 3 in a 3-game set because of the work you did in games 1 and 2. But if you're working a pitching staff games 1 and 2 and 3, you could have them up against the ropes for 3 more games if you were able to put them in a bad spot. It's not like, even a playoff series where it's like, you only got to win 4. We got them up against the wall. It's like, no, like you could get 3 wins out of this, 2 or 3 wins just by wearing down a pitcher early, like wearing down a staff early in a week, essentially, for a series. That's it's something I haven't thought about enough until maybe this conversation. That's something to look at. That's heavy. That's tough.
It's the kind of thing too that could really change your season depending on where you're at too. Because if you lose, say, 3 of 6 or 4 of 6, and then you go into that next 6-game set and you drop, say, the first game or 2 or first 2 of 3, all of a sudden those losses mount up real quick, and you start thinking like, this is getting bad. And when it starts getting bad, when that mindset kind of comes into the clubhouse of it's getting bad, it's hard to shake that. In a sport that your performance is, in no small part believing like, yeah, I'm good enough to do this. I can do this. When the results aren't there and you start pressing and then it really starts to not be there, it can start to snowball quick.
And how about this, by the way? Talk about why Missoula is so good. At no point last year did Missoula lose more than 2 games in a row. It had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2-game losing streaks. 6. They lost the first 2 of the year. That's crazy. First of all, 96 games, not losing 3 in a row. But also is what we're seeing is it circles back to the roster construction, which is their pitching staff it's crazy. It was last year's pitching staff. Again, I usually break it down by like your average, above average, below average type of breakdown. They're the only pitching staff I had in the league last year where I wouldn't have called any of their like frequently used pitchers below average for the league, which is unreal. I mean, I'm looking at guys like if you take their 10 sort of go-to pitchers, none of them were below league average in my eyes. Only one was really even average. Everyone else was above to like way above. Like Ethan Swanson last year was hilarious. Like, what was it? That line was offensive. Both him and Alfredo Villa struck out more than 10 an inning or 10 a game. And they had sub 3 ERAs in the Pioneer League. Swanson did over 32 outings of relief. Alfredo Villa, by the way, 18 outings, 18 starts, 3 complete games. I'm sure doubleheader aided, but over 109, almost 109 innings in this league. That's crazy. I mean, it is. And 2.9 walks per 9, 10.7 strikeouts. I mean, that guy's a dog, first of all.
Yeah.
But I mean, imagine, so you got that coming up in the rotation. You got Connor Schultz, who was great. Calvin Pilot was very good. Mark Timmons, very good. He was in relief, but Dawson Day was the one I was trying to come out with the last one. Yeah. But he was there a while. Like, there was no stint where you were like, oh yeah, we got a couple other, like, we got the back end of the rotation right now. We got them. Like, nah, like Missoula's ready. And I think that's very difficult to do in a league where we've talked a lot about the pitching shortages as well.
Yeah. I honestly, across all of indie ball, it's a shortage. So you kind of wonder, like, how do these guys stay in the Pioneer League that long?
Yeah, and I got to do a little more looking at where everyone's coming next year. I'm a little lost on this league and where the transactions are, so I'm playing catch up at all times. But yeah, it's interesting. but Missoula seems like a place that guys like to play. I think that's also something. It's not like anything that comes along for the Frontier League, I'm going. I think this one's more like, well, Missoula's well liked, well respected. They move guys out. They move guys to affiliated ball. People seem to like being there with Mike.
Yeah.
I think there's something to it, man. I think Missoula is probably one of the 5 organizations I'd point to in indie ball, like top 5, that are like, they know what the hell they're doing.
Well, let's shift to a newer organization, Glacier, because they definitely had a franchise year, really, this year. Now, granted, 2 years of existence, so hey, take what you get. Though it was a notable improvement. I mean, you improved by 14 games. That's a good sign. Above 500. There's a lot working in their favor. Had not been for the half system, they're in the playoffs, so that's a huge plus for them too. Overall, I think the pitching was good. I think it was definitely good. Batting could use some help, but I don't necessarily think that you could take this year as anything other than successful. I think when you see that kind of improvement, you find some stability, and you start seeing the results in the field. Overall, I think it's a successful year, even if you didn't make the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, bad break. We've talked about that plenty on just getting the tough draw there. I don't think enough discussion happens when it comes to Glacier. I don't know if it's a weather thing. I'm literally looking up their altitude right now. It's high. It's fairly up there, I think.
Kalispell.
Yeah, where's Kalispell at related to that?
I think Idaho.
I mean,
or Montana.
Yeah, it's about half mile up. Yeah. But they're very pitcher friendly. They like that ballpark 2 years in a row has been, I mean, the second or most pitcher friendly ballpark. I mean, 2022 was by a long way, it seemed like. But 2023 was a little more back to normal. But like, so when you're saying like the offense left a little bit to be desired, I'd honestly say their offense is about as impressive as the pitching. It's just that their numbers don't look as good. But they're in a tough environment, I think, a lot of nights, especially compared to some of the other places people are playing in this league. So it's not only or is it not really pitcher or not really hitter friendly there? It's definitely not compared to some of the other places. But that's Dean Miller had a hell of a year. I mean, I don't know who the hell was sending him on the base paths, but there were some questionable moments on that. But I mean, he was 90 games. He's just consistent. Like, I hit 360, a 1.0 OPS. Christian Kirtley was kind of similar with that too. Very good offensively. The pitchers, though, that stuck out to me. You're right. I mean, there were some very good pitchers. I mean, Justin Coleman was absolutely gross out of the bullpen. Same with Connor Housley. That was one of the best 1-2s in the league. No Barrows. Yeah. Hey, Glacier, this was a step up. This is really good. You don't want to see, I feel like we see a lot of indie teams come out hot and then take a step back, or they come out slow and then they also come out slow in year 2. I think it feels good seeing a team, come out a little slow, like with the on-field product, and then like really have a good second year. That's nice. Gastonia did that. Well, that's not a good example. Never mind. Scratch that. Delete that. Yeah, man. I don't know. I had a lot of fun watching Glacier this year. I found myself watching more Glacier games than most, even more than Missoula. I found they're enjoyable games to watch. They were fun. It was a good team.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of improvement, and I think that upward trajectory is just something that's really encouraging to see.
Yeah. I'm just checking where Cruz Taylor ended up. Cruz Taylor was like one of my favorite players to watch in the league this year. But I think he's still hanging around with Glacier. That's cool. Love that. Yeah, dude, it's a good ball club. If they can return a lot of those guys, that would be fantastic. Though we did Billings get him? What is happening here? It's huge. God, I would like literally have a spreadsheet going. I've written this down. I know this. Anyway, semantics. To the point. Where do you want to go next?
I guess we'll go to Ogden.
Let's go to Ogden.
In Cash Champ's Swan Song year. Yeah.
How about that? We didn't talk. We should have talked about Ogden more up front, by the way. That was kind of disrespectful not to. Yeah. Acting like they stumbled. We talked the whole time about Missoula and Billings, and then just like ignored the fact that Ogden like managed to deliver at the end of things here.
They are a team that's like, they earned what they got. Don't get me wrong, but like, I just never really felt like they were an overpowering team. Like, they got by, okay pitching, pretty meh. Batting was good. You had like their 3 or 4 guys that really like delivered and did what needed to be done. But yeah, I mean, it just is like it's Ogden. I don't even mean that like a bad way. Like, I want to call it.
No, I understand.
Yeah, it's just like it's Ogden. Yeah, they went ahead and they did what they had to do, and like that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, I felt like, I mean, if we're talking above average people on the team, like plus guys, I mean, they had a couple rotation pieces: Pablo Aravello, Mitch Stone. They had, in the lineup, I really was only consistently impressed by like Reese Alexiades.
Yeah.
And then Damian Henderson was good, but he only played 41 games.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. Nick Olsh is, by the way, he is very good. I
was going to say
more the average season for me. Like, I don't know. The numbers weren't as crazy when you stack them all up. I know the batting average is 373. It's wild. But
I was about to say, but what about my stat?
I know, but not really complimenting that with a lot of power in the Pioneer League kind of sets you back a ways a little bit. I mean, that's all. But
another analytic friendly stat: RBIs though 73.
And yeah, and that was exactly where I was going. I'm glad he got there because the thing that made Nick Olsh so solid is the fact that he's not hitting for power, but they hit him in a smart spot where like there would tend to be guys on in front of him, traffic on the bases, and he could kind of keep it running. While he might not have a ton of power, it felt like guys a lot of times did have to come into the zone with him just to like not continue to endanger their inning. And it's not taken away from anything he did. I think he was positioned well for the type of batter he is, and it sort of played to his strengths. But yeah, I put him in high end of like an average season. I know it's so crazy for a 370 season. And if he hears that, he's going to be like, what else do I need to do? I don't know. Maybe some
like going through the roster. There's a couple. I was going to say Dakota Connors, but I mean, yeah, I guess no.
Yeah, I know.
They're kind of just a Nick Olsh season. That's not as great.
You're seeing 300 batting.
Exactly. Like I see it, and like in my head, I'm like, oh, that's
you
great.
have to remember the average batting average in this league last year was 310.
See, that's what throws me off every time. Like I go
to
evaluate it, I'm just like the metrics that like I'm used to just like traditionally looking at and going, if he hit 300, how could it be a bad year? But then go, well, it's Pioneer League. That being said, Cameron Feltz stole 40 bases, so like that's cool.
I mean, I don't know. I was just gonna say that the league average in MLB was under 250, so it was 62 points higher for the league average, batting average. So enjoy that shattering of any context.
Holy hell. I just looked at Marshall Schill. I didn't look at him at all until just now. In 41 appearances, he has a whip of almost 2.
Yeah. Well, where are you going with that?
I don't really know where to go with that. I'm just like, I seen it. I was like, oh, okay, that shouldn't be that high.
Yeah. It's just not missing bats, man. Yes, he can strike people out, and him and Riley Addison are very much the same for me. Like they're guys who are really coming toward the end of, they're aging out of the Pioneer League, and they haven't done enough to be in the Frontier League, in my opinion. That sucks. I hate it. I'm rooting for them, but at the same time, it's the same mix. They can strike guys out, but when Riley, he tends to like nibble. I feel like he needs to attack, but like Marshall will attack the zone, and he gets hit. It's like I don't know what he needs. Something. With late break, easy for me to say.
Wasn't he a Capital for a little bit?
Maybe I gotta remember.
I think so. I'll look it up for a second here. Talk about Dan Kubiak as I do this. Because he had an ERA of 0.5, and that's pretty impressive. And he was a Capital for 2 years, by the way. Shell.
Yeah, you're right. He was, and he had a great season there too. That's interesting. I wonder what's changed.
Yeah, 1 year was good.
That first
22
year.
was not good.
Sub 2 ERA over 42 innings. That's something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's something there then. But
same problems about 5 innings. I'm not going to count that. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking Dan Kubiak,
it
always makes me laugh because like it's always like
he bounces around.
I entered indie ball coverage and it was Dave Kubiak, and whenever he bounces around, I'm like, do they think they signed Dave Kubiak?
Dude, he used to confuse me between him and David Kubiak.
That's what, David Kubiak and then Dan Kubiak, and I felt bad because I had one of like my first tweets that really made it around indie ball was something like, we have Dave Kubiak at home, and it's like Dave Kubiak at home, and it's like Dan Kubiak coming into the game. Which is not fair because Dan's just been a dog, dude. Like he had a 3.2 ERA with Washington last year or 2 years ago now. Ogden, he had a 0.5 ERA over 35 innings.
It's just the Atlantic League's a little much for him.
Yeah, but that's okay. Like,
yeah, I think he's essentially a really good American Association guy. Great
in the Frontier. Hey, you had a mid-6 ERA in the American, but that was small sample.
Yeah.
Then mid-6 in a very small sample with the Atlantic League, and then back to a 3 in the Frontier, and back to the ridiculousness he did last year. So I would like to see him back in the American. I mean, even if he tries to use the Frontier League as a launching pad again, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but
it's so wild, dude. He had just like 5 years off from playing between college and when he started up again.
Yeah. Yeah, what is again in the most indie ball thing possible.
Yeah.
1 year at Northwestern didn't go well, disappears, shows back up in Indie League, chuck in. Amazing. I'm just trying to do a quick location on what his transaction status is right now. Let me text him.
I got to imagine that Evan Parker would want to bring him back. I mean, how could you not want to bring a guy like that back?
I'm lost in the why the hell is Dane Kubiak not getting picked up? It's because I even like if he also got hit around badly in the Frontier, I'd be like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, but
like he struck out almost 13 per 9 over a full season.
But any other thoughts on Ogden in the past year?
No, I mean I think it's more or less it's just a team that is solidly assembled enough to be problematic. I think we saw that. I think they might have benefited from Billings had to go pretty aggressively to beat Missoula, and I think that kind of freed up that championship. But like their run was legit at the end there. I mean, they're a good ball club. Like they're a good ball club without having a ton of people here. Like, wow, look at that. Like that's fine. There are a lot of teams like that. But
some of their parts.
Yeah, that's very much so. Yeah, it's a solidly put together team. We talk about they have, a great bullpen piece or two. They have solid to average bullpen pieces to back that up. And you got some good starters and that'll get you through a lot of games as long as you got some pop in the lineup. Like you said, it's guys like Nick Ulch who are being batted and put in a position to succeed. And that's how you start getting more out of it.
I think they're going to be an interesting team to do the preview on more than the review.
It's going to be so hard, man. It's going to be so difficult. And I mean, especially without Cash there now, I mean, talk about how much of it's putting people in the right position.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. I think I'm hesitant on any manager making their debut for the Pioneer League. It just seems like such an adjustment from every other league out there, whether you're coming from below in pro ball or college ball or from down at a higher India league or affiliated. Like I don't feel like there's any comfortable transition managerially into the Pioneer League other than just like, well, we're going to find out.
Yeah. I think it is really just because things can go off the rails there so quickly and everything's such an unknown and with dealing with them because of just the nature of the league itself that it's the kind of thing where a more experienced guy can handle it better than someone that's, in their 30s making their debut as a manager.
And even if we're talking in game too, it's like game speeds up and you're so damn quick. The Pioneer League, like you get a guy warm and in the time that the guy got warm, they gave up 4 runs and you're like, okay, great.
You really got to see where it's going before it gets there. And that's something that's really hard to do when you're first learning how it goes. So, Boise, Gary Van Tol's team, not a good hitting team, but a good pitching team.
No. That's about the sum of it, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Moving on.
Good talk. No. I mean, offensively, that was not what they were hoping to see there. And I don't know, is it? I don't know. It was interesting. I could have expected more looking at them before the season, but I guess that's about right. Alex Baeza was the headliner offensively for sure. And DJ Poteet, they were sort of always, I feel like they were always in the mix. Sam Olsen looked good in his short stint. But really the headlining was the pitching. Nate Alexander with a basically 3 ERA over 44 innings in relief, 9 saves, clutch. They had 1, 2, 3, 4 if we're in the business of rounding up guys who are striking out 9 per 9 innings. So that's one way to get it done. But the one thing that did weird me out with them is they gave up hits, man. Like, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't that excessive, but I felt like every time I watched them, there were just guys on base, like a lot of traffic. Look, how about this for a weird one? So they had the second best in runs per game allowed.
Yeah.
And third best ERA. But when it came to whip, third best whip. What the hell? So weird. Sorry. I am convinced it's in my head. I'm not crazy. I've seen it with my eyes. They let on a ton of base runners, but maybe I'm dumb as hell, Nick. Maybe that's what we've learned today.
We already knew that, though.
I hate it. All that to say, I mean, they basically, you can go about 6 arms deep on this team. You can go a core 3 arms deep into the bullpen until you really start seeing, maybe even 4, until you start seeing some actually like average to below average talent. So that's what kind of kept them afloat throughout this thing. But yeah, the offense just really couldn't keep up.
Yeah, I don't really have many notes on it. Little existential crisisy for me is there's only one guy on this team I'm not older than, and that I don't like that.
Yeah, that ship has sailed for me, my guy.
Yeah,
I'm seeing Andrew's younger than me now. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not loving this especially because the one guy that is older than me is only that by 2 weeks exactly.
The vibes are not good.
Vibes are horrible right now. They are right.
Am I deaf?
I think I may be.
I hate to just breeze over Boise, by the way, but like, yeah, I mean, they were the quintessential, the least talked about team you'll ever see is the solidly second place team who was not real close to first place, but they also weren't close to collapsing. It was just like, yeah, all right. Like they were good at pitching, they were good at hitting. Like that was it. You know, there's a lot to talk about on the team that's a disaster. A lot to talk about on the great teams. It just Boise fit right into it. So sorry if you're here for the Boise content, but I think you already know. Like you already know. You see what you got there.
Yeah. It's like they are what the record says they are. I mean, it's cliched, but it kind of is true in this case where it's like they're built and play exactly like a kind of team they are, where it's like, yeah, you're about a 50-win ball club. Yeah.
They are who we thought they were. We let them off the hook. Shout out to Alex Baeza, by the way. I got about 127 times getting on base for him. 0 stolen base attempts. Know thyself, my guy. Love that.
Another kind of like upstart team, a team that we really didn't know what to expect coming into it in Rocky Mountain, which was a good pitching, or not a good pitching team. They were a good hitting team, but not a good pitching team. And I think really you saw the benefit of not having any sort of player development deals, just being able to produce a good team. They get to the postseason for the first time in this independent age for them. They didn't stay the longest time. Ogden took care of them, but even still, I think overall, kind of like Glacier, this is a successful season. It shows they're in the right way. There were guys that you could kind of point to. I'm sure you'll list a lot of them. Strope is one of the guys that I think we'll probably spend some time on. Maybe Ethan Lopez as well on the batting side of things. Pitching, like I said, it is a little bit scarce, but overall, just looking at it as a team, I think there is a lot to take away from this year, and I think there's a lot of positives to take away from this year, and I think you can definitely build on that going forward to hopefully continue to have the kind of success that they had this year.
Rocky Mountain was an interesting team because it does seem like a team that's getting it together in the Pioneer League because it was the quintessential, okay, it's easier to sign hitting, ton of hitting. It's harder to sign pitching. Not so much pitching. I mean, let's not overlook how good Nico Zaglin was while he was there. I mean, he was absolutely absurd. What was that? 39 strikeouts in about 30 innings. Just gross. He was really good. But other than that, I mean, like, it was guys like, and who really was there along Peyton Long, Jack Cunningham, Zach Ottinger. They were key to kind of keeping things afloat, but there really weren't a ton of guys that they reliably went to. There was only about 8 guys I would call as like the repeat guys that they were going to.
In fairness, it also is like a mile above sea level.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not. Like, honestly, I'm calling, if I want to go about this way, I would say, well, depending on the vibe, you could argue that, like, I don't know. You could argue Jack Cunningham and Christian Day had bad years. I would say they were average. They were fine. Like, and that's somebody, Christian Day, with a 7 ERA. But I think for what he was dealing with, throwing that many innings for Rocky Mountain, he had an uphill climb. And if he honestly has control a little bit better, I think he'd have a better time with it. That's the main gist on the pitchers for Rocky Mountain. It's going to be like, it's a tough situation. They're doing what they can. And anybody who goes and shows out, you might lose them. So that's fun. But boy, is the lineup the real story here. Like, I hate to breeze over anybody, but I mean, good Lord. It was, Stephen Wilmer, nasty. Jacob Barfield was crazy. Dusty Stroke, Jacob McMurray, Casey Peterson. Like, I would say 8, like, firmly above average, like, plus hitters on this Rocky Mountain team. Like, it's not ideal. And they all were in over 50 games. They were in the lineup. So do with that.
I will say
that doesn't even count Elvis Peralta, by the way, who also had a great year.
I do want to know how Milton Smith goes from having an all right year, solid enough year in the Frontier League, to taking 1 year not playing and then doing worse in the Pioneer League than he did in the Frontier League. I'm confused by that.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I'm also going to address the fact that, no, it's different. Brandon Crosby did play more games for Rocky Mountain than I thought. That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, there's just a couple of odd, like, outliers here.
I have seen, though, like, guys can kind of go in the Frontier League and pop sometimes, and it seems to be simply without rhyme or reason. Sometimes I wonder if it's because there's good protection in that league sometimes, and like they start seeing a lot of strikes because they're not that they're getting protection, but like we gotta throw strikes to some of these like down the lineup guys. But I don't know. He's a 275 hitter, shows up and he is under 270 in 28 games with Rocky Mountain. That's great. No, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like, it didn't really affect the team all that much, but still, you would think a guy that, his main thing is speed would maybe not do better, but he did well against better competition. So you'd think, it would translate.
Yeah.
Maybe because he's not really a power guy, it doesn't really help him as much.
It doesn't really play to his strengths as well in that league. I could definitely see that. Frontier League, you get some fields that have a little bit of play in it where you can like hit in the gap and go.
No.
I'm trying to like piece together what was it? Did anything happen at the end of that 2021 season? Like, I'm not like, was he trying to come back from injury? That's the one that's in my head.
I honestly don't know.
But it doesn't stand out as being the case. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting, man. But
we got 2 more Colorado teams, so
winding it back down. Yeah. The point is the lineup was a problem for sure for everybody that they faced. And they nearly kept pace with Grand Junction, who had a ton of offense.
Yeah.
It was something.
Yeah. I guess being that you mentioned that we could go to Grand Junction here and then swing over to Northern Colorado from there. Cause this is a case of, I think, a really disappointing year. They come off a championship and there are some guys that really jump out. Jalen Hubbard being the obvious one, Joe Johnson, being another one. There's really 4 guys I think are, part of the big 4 on there. I'll leave the other 2 for now. Pitching wise, there's like 2 guys, would you say?
Talking NOCA, right?
No, I'm talking Grand Junction.
No, Grand Junction. Sorry about that. I had a full AD moment because the numbers actually say that Rocky Mountain's not that hitter friendly compared to their parks in this league, because this league is nonsense. It's so hard to figure it out.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to poke a hole in anything. When it comes to the pitching, so I had Justin Kleinsorg, but he was there for about 18 starts through almost 100 innings. He was very, very good.
Yeah, he was amazing.
But then other than that, I would say like Brian Perez and Adam Blowbaum were about average, and kind of everybody else you can bundle into sort of the average to below average category, which is a tough way to operate with 2 above average and 2 above average starters, call it, and an above average reliever, and then just scrounging, trying to make things work day to day. That's a tough way to go. Part of it is it's crazy there. Grand Junction's environment can get pretty weird. The offense, they had 4 guys that were pretty impressive. Ron Washington, who's obviously he seems to be pretty in demand right now. Jake Cruz, Joe Johnson, Coco Figueredo. Damn, I always ruin that name every time. They all were kind of key contributors. Coco was only there for 40 games, but everyone else was there pretty much day in, day out. So it's pretty impressive. But Jalen Hubbard also, obviously, was great. But yeah, man, it just was not enough. Some good pitching, but not enough. Some good hitting, but not enough. And that's kind of it. And when you're dealing with what Grand Junction's dealing with, they're defending champs, but they had to go against a Rocky Mountain team that was much improved from the year before. Boise, who, as we said, they, weren't great, but they had, some of the roster figured out enough to be competitive and cause some problems. And Ogden, who managed to have enough of a roster to go on and win a championship, you need more than that. And they just never got it together. And it's interesting. And part of it's that I didn't really cover them 2 years ago. So I'm having trouble kind of comparing to what they look like. But I mean, did anything stand out to you as just like, other than the obvious, which is the guys who aren't there?
Even in the case of like 22, from my recollection, they weren't a terribly overpowering team. I think part of this too is I really put a lot of stock in Bobby Jenks as a manager. So I think the switch over to Nabashu is noticeable there. I mean, even if you want to go back and look, I mean, there are some drop off on guys. I mean, they had Nico Popa, who was a 400 hitter that they didn't have in the following year. Pitching wise, just remembered now, the Baseball Reference does not show starts for the 2022 Grand Junction team, which were the Rockies still at that point, but still, even overall, they were a better team pitching wise. Ibarra, Young, Reynolds were all better options there, even bullpen wise. I mean, you just were by innings to find your starters, I guess. And, Alfredo Villa was actually on that team too, for what that's worth. But even still, it just wasn't as well rounded of a team, I guess, really would come down to it. Nothing in particular jumps out. But, it just still, I just kind of view it as it's such a downgrade. I mean, a 21 game difference here, man. That's
crazy.
That's big. Right? So, I mean,
yeah.
At least according to when I was looking at things, I may be awful, but
it's not what you want to see. That's my hard hitting analysis. But I do think, I think part of it is the division coming up around them and maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to say not knowing what it takes, not having what it takes, but like not something was missing, and it was a bad time to have something missing when everyone else around you was making strides.
Yeah.
Bad year for down here.
Yep. Going to NOCO, got their manager in late, and Frank Gonzalez. And that was the thing we were watching for a while. They had some issues in the new home as well, but they were winding up with I guess something to take away from it. I mean, pretty meh team overall, in my opinion. I mean, batting wise, like Peyton Robertson kind of stuck out a little bit. Jackson Coates stuck out a little bit. Mr. Land Value Tax, Henry George stuck out a little bit. Pitching wise, Draves, I guess, a little bit, but even him, I mean, 35 innings, I'm not sure that's enough to really stand out. I don't really think there's too many, if any, real standouts on this team, to be kind of blunt.
I mean, that's pretty much what it came down to, right? It was just the offense was a different situation, but I mean, the pitching, again, I put everything on like my own scale. Like it was like basically 100 is going to be average, just so I can kind of start to qualify what we got here. I would say I wouldn't have put any single pitcher that routinely was making appearances for this team on like above a 90, like not even within 10% relatively of average. It just, there was nothing. I mean, Corey Wills had moments. Carter Linton had some moments, definitely. But I feel like, you know what it was? I got it. They had a lot of good players, but they ran into, they were all good, but. So it was like Corey Wills. In fact, you can go Corey Wills, Austin Schneider, Mark Tyndall, who I think were the four key pieces of the pitching staff throughout the year. Were all good, average-ish, but they all were letting on tons of base runners. Like, I mean, we're talking, 10, 11, 12 base runners per 9 innings. And that's just on hits, by the way. Like it's worse when you include walks.
Yeah.
And when you just can't miss bats that consistently, or when you are getting, even if you're striking guys out, there's guys who are making contact and it's causing trouble for you. Like, it's not going to work. I mean, the two strikeout guys were also walking 4.5 to 5.5 guys per nine. It's Corey Wills and Carter Linton. So it was just, they were dealing with a lot of that offensively too. I mean, they had some, I would say probably 7 or 8 above average hitters throughout the season that were in this lineup 60 plus games, but there were a lot of, it was just, it never felt like it fully was coming together, even when the offense obviously was putting up some numbers for some stretches there, but like they probably struck out more than they should have. They were, I don't know. It was just a weird vibe. Like offensively, yeah, they'd blow up, but then they have some flat games in there too that were really weird. And I couldn't figure that out. I wanted to dive deeper into what was going on with that. I just couldn't that late in the season start getting the playoff run. Noko wasn't relevant enough, but yeah, there's some weirdness when it comes to everything. And it's the way to look at it in a positive light is they're close. You know what I mean? Like they fine tuned some things and you could be playing with something now. Yeah. But it was just not they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys hit over 10 home runs. That's great. But I don't know. It's just weird. It was a very odd type of team. And really the pitching obviously is more the hold up where it's just everybody had something that caused the issues where, again, if you look at the damn, dude, I didn't realize how many people they struck out. Noko actually, they had some guys who could actually slam when it comes to strikeouts, but
they're high rollers where it's either boom or bust.
It's feast or famine. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 key pitchers who are giving up more hits per nine than league average. The one guy who's way below, really keeping guys off the bases for hits, is also walking 5.5 guys per nine. Like that is the quintessential 2023 New York Noko Owls issue. Is like everybody is letting everyone on base through hits, except for the guy who isn't, who's walking everybody. It's like, damn, dude, that's tough.
Yeah, it's a
situation. That's it. I think, I don't know if that's a roster construction issue. If it's, it's not the easiest recruitment for sure, but is it a thing where they're just focused on strikeout guys? Because they do have some strikeout guys in there, but there are a lot of guys who weren't striking guys out. Does that mean, I think above all, I would even more than strikeouts is just finding guys who aren't giving up a lot of fly balls. I'm sure that's not a wild thing to reveal, but yeah. I wonder sometimes what it is that teams are using as their bar, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's more just a stream of conscious. I'm very aware of that. My bad.
I also think to a certain degree, it may just be what you're able to get in there. And at least if they're doing one thing right, we're like, okay, they're striking out a lot of guys. Yeah, they get hit around a little bit, but at least we have something here to work with. You keep what you have. And again, Frank was a late guy to get in there. You're doing a lot on the fly. Mm-hmm. You're establishing everything real late. So I wonder that's part of it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of it. That's a fair statement.
Yeah.
I'm just doing a quick deep dive. This is not the time to do it, but I'm very interested in how high above sea level different teams are. Because I keep being like, I spit out there that Rocky Mountain actually plays slightly pitcher friendly, which is crazy because it's like 6,000 something feet above sea level. But that pitcher friendly thing that's actually good for pitchers. It's just compared to the other parks in the league. Yeah. And I'm like, that's right. If they're all crazy, someone's got to be normal. Like something has to come out as average. Yeah. Billings. Good Lord. Anyway, I'll let you do your thing.
We got
altitude.
3 teams.
It's like a psycho.
Yeah, we got 3 teams left to get through.
Geez,
Two Falls and Billings. Yeah, so I think we could probably knock up both Falls at the same time because I think they're both kind of in the same boat here of like neither were good.
Hot take.
I'll say it outright. They both are bad. They're 30-win teams. Like, what do you want me to doll up here?
I agree. I would say Idaho Falls had a pitching staff that had 3 solid pitchers and then a mix of dudes who had 5 of their core pitchers had above 8 ERAs. That's not going to play even in the Pioneer. And the problem is they answered that by having nobody, in my opinion, that was above league average hitting. Like Bryce Brown did hit for average, but he also had 3 home runs in 60 games, which is really going to make a dent in this league with the current situation.
And only have 3 guys who are double-digit home runs. So
yeah, and those are and honestly, I put those 3 guys as kind of not even the main contributors, honestly. Like, I mean, Tyler Wyatt washes out more as an average guy because you're hitting 290 in the Pioneer League. That's also not getting it. More of the thing of they're good,
but
the weaknesses are tough. Yeah. With that, I mean, the pitching staff, Brian Williams, Daniel Silva, and Jorge Gonzalez were kind of just on an island. Everyone else was leaving something to be desired. If we want to transition, if you can go ahead with more if you want, but
I mean, I really, at this point, I think honestly talking about them is more just burying them, and I don't know.
I don't want to do that. Yeah, they're young guys who have a chance to come up.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, there's not really anything to say, and they didn't really make too many changes to the roster either. So it's kind of just like they almost throw up the white flag, and we're like, "Yep, we're not good."
This is one of my struggles with doing review and not preview at the same time, is because it's like there are these guys where all I can say is, well, that didn't go well. And like, I want to throw in silver lining and like, give some like, yeah, look, there's a good chance this turns out fine for this guy and he could be an asset next year, but that's not what we're talking about. So I feel like a lot of times I'm like, well, that guy sucked. And I walk away and I'm like, well, that wasn't what I meant. It's not what I wanted. So it is a weird balance, but Great Falls kind of did have the same situation. Riley Jepson, Zane Washington were the sort of dudes up top on the lineup side. Jalen Williams also looked good for, he was a big contributor. Actually, we should not breeze over him, but
again, guys started a game too, just to go way off base there. And I mean, they had,
dude, that's crazy.
You had some guys that were good. I mean, if it's the 16 games he was there, De Guzman was very good. But as you mentioned there, and Jepson and Williams, I mean, like, what else are we looking at here? Washington, which I don't even know how to begin to pronounce that first name, to be quite blunt.
Zane.
Zane?
Okay. Yeah, don't overthink it.
Why can't you?
Your friend Billy Zane.
Why can't it be a Z? Why it gotta be an X?
If Z sound, why not Z shape? Yeah, I mean, it basically is a carbon copy of what we just talked about, Idaho Falls, of, a couple top pitchers for like a couple above average pitchers, a couple average pitchers, and then just not enough backing depth wise there. And then offensively, about 2 above average hitters, 3-ish average hitters, looking at Anthony Herron and Giovanni Giacomo. And that's, that's that. It's just not enough depth. They're heading in the right direction if you want to squint until your head, but it's just,
I mean, too, they have a new manager this year too, so.
I know, it's just not, inspiring necessarily. Just as I've said, I always worry about new Pioneer League managers.
We'll see how it turns out.
Sorry, that's super negative, but we're getting.
Well, we get to end on a positive note because we get to talk about Billings. So.
Oh yeah, man. Circling back, hitting Billings as we started the episode talking about how Billings made it difficult for Missoula. Really started the preview, the review. What is this at this point? Review. Yeah, I mean, it was about who they. It's about who they added, right? I mean, we kind of talked about it before. It's the fact they picked up. There's three of their 4 or 5 best pitchers: Cam Tuller, Cameron Rapidi, and Jacob Stobart, were all guys that were picked up within like 10 days of each other in July. And John Michael Fail was a late June ad. I think if you remember, like, Missoula sort of hopped out when they lost their first 2 to Billings to start the year, and then they really sort of turned up the heat, and it got pretty real pretty quickly. And I do think there might have been a moment with Billings where they went, okay, we need to start moving the puzzle pieces maybe earlier than we might otherwise. And Billings also had a really bad stretch at one point in the year. They lost like 8 or 9 in a row. Well, Billings, I think, was hot, which is tough. Missoula rather was tough. So yeah, it was 2. I can line it up right now. They went from May 30th to June 8th, and they lost 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a row, 13 out of 14 as tough for Billings. And then over that same stretch, I mean, Missoula was basically just opening it up. It was not good. May 30 to June 8. Yeah. In that time when they lost 13 games. Missoula lost 3. So I think that is right. That was mid-June that brought us to, and that is right about, okay, start seeing some pieces start to move. So I guess maybe it was good for Billings.
It built right into that second half, right, where they said, okay, first half is what it is now, but we could still turn this thing around by getting this second half, and they did exactly that.
Yeah. Yo, how do you pronounce first name Hunter? What's the last name?
Oh, dear God, I was hoping you were going to ask that because I seen his name.
To be fair, I don't know that I'm right.
I apologize in advance, right? Because it's going to be bad. Schliproot?
I was going Schilperroot, but like, what do I do with that last R?
That's the thing.
We're hitting a 30 Rock rural juror situation here. The Roger. And I feel bad because I probably said his name 2,000 times last season. I don't think I got it. I think I said it 2,000 different ways. It was not good. But now, and we'll talk about this in the preview. It'll be interesting to see if Billings can run it back with all the changes being made here. But it was
Greg Maddox now there too, and
yeah, I think Billings. I mean, they earned it. And the more I look at it, I was kind of like, did Missoula choke or did Billings take this? Billings took it, man. Yeah, the additions they made. John Michael failed, dude. That slash.
I know that's just insane going off on
353, 414, 761 slugging. Didn't steal a single bag. Know thyself, young man. Love it. So I'm crouching all day. I ain't sliding, dummy.
It's like, that's just not what I'm
sliding face first. Run me over. It's just a crazy number of runs created in a 55 game stint. Yeah. Out of a role where you're not really looking for that, catcher. It's not really what you're bargaining for. I mean, I can do a comparison of other catching production, but it's certainly maybe the most since they've gone indie ball for this league. So craziness, man. There was not every ad they made, but a lot of the ads they made seemed to really fit the role they needed and do it in an exemplary way. So not just to compliment our guests here, but it was very nicely done.
Exactly. It was a very adaptable team this year, and they proved it out. So last little bit on the review. I'm going to go through failed to meet expectations, met expectations, and exceeded. Tell me if you think I'm off base on this.
Okay.
Exceeded expectations is the largest group, so I'll get them first. In Ogden, Billings, Glacier, Boise, NoCo, and Rocky Mountain. And hear me out on it. The last two there, I had floorboard expectations. So the fact they weren't there, exceed that. Boise, I wasn't expecting them to be really in contention. So good for them. Glacier, I was expecting more of year 1 and year 2, and the fact that they had a genuine playoff push, phenomenal. Ogden, I didn't think they were going to win a championship, and they did. So okay, they won. And then Billings, I mean, I don't think you could really say anything other than we didn't expect them to do much, and they wound up doing a lot. So, like, hey, it exceeded there.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm like feeling a little bit on this. I mean, I think you're kind of there. I'm doing it myself here. I don't know. I should have been prepared for this, to be honest with you. Because I don't know. I'm trying to think back to what I'm putting myself in the shoes of where I was preseason with this, which is kind of the challenge here. I don't know. I mean, I guess just off the top of my head, like Billings, I think overperformed, and they exceeded expectations for sure. As all the reasons we talked about, the signings, the clutch wins, all that. Boise, I think that's about right, honestly. Yeah. Glacier exceeded. Great Falls, they were, that's honestly, about, I want to say they didn't meet it, but I'm also like, it's kind
here's
of.
Here's the thing, like Idaho and Great Falls, both of them, I have them as met expectations because I didn't expect for them to be good, and they weren't good. Yeah,
that's true. That's where I'm at. You're right.
So,
that's a clear way to say that.
That's pretty much what it is. They lived up to what I thought they were going to do. I didn't think they were going to do much. And like, as far as failed goes, Grand Junction, I thought was going to have a much stronger title defense. They didn't. And Missoula, I expected to win a championship, and they didn't. So it's like,
yeah, I would say level Grand Junction too. You're right. Yeah. I think we kind of agree across the board here. Yeah. I'm scrolling through, seeing what I might disagree with. I mean, I feel like honestly, I'm going to say NoCo. I'm torn between met and exceeded expectations for NoCo, if I'm honest with you, because the expectations were set by a team that couldn't play their games in full because the sun was going down, their lights were in the wrong place. So that is one way to set the expectations low. But I'm also looking at like they had so much offense and so much pitching that to come in like fourth is kind of like, and no, I guess they didn't have much pitching. That's right. I'm looking at this from a weird perspective where it looks like they were better than they were. No, they met expectations. NoCo did. God, yeah. I honestly am kind of like not exciting here, but yeah, I don't really have any hot takes on this.
Yeah. Cool.
Good to see. I'm interested. I have my expectations. I want to talk about a team that you have high expectations for. I know it's preview wise. Rocky Mountain's the one I'm looking at. I'm like, I want to see what this team comes out with next year.
Yeah. Well, do we have anything else to get to before we wrap up this episode?
I have one dumb thing.
Okay.
Yay. Trivia game with Nick. It's
Right.
not trivia. It's just going to be guessing. It's going to be quick. So I'm currently working on a video. It should drop next week or so on the second half Stormers phenomenon. And I don't want to say too much about it, but I can confirm what is the most obvious point, which is since COVID. So we'll take not since COVID, we'll go the last 2 years when the reign of the Barnstormers. Over the past 2 years, they have had, the best differential between their first and second half records of any Atlantic League team. And the highest percentage of their wins have come from the second half. So 60% of Lancaster's wins have been in the second half of the season over the past 2 years. What team, only 2 other teams have over half of their wins coming from the second half, which means every other team in the league is basically going downward as the year goes on.
Okay.
Who do you think the other 2 were? And the hint I'll give you is they're in opposite divisions.
Okay, opposite. And it's from this past year?
Yes. It's from the last 2 years.
Last 2 years.
So
okay.
combined, the last 2 years, which 2 teams are getting more of their wins from the second half than the first half other than Lancaster?
Lexington?
You would have been right after the first year, but remember they started like 2 in a million to start the second half this past year.
I got confused. I thought their bad half was the first, because I knew it was the polarized Taz. Yeah.
I know. And it makes sense that it would be the first half because he just randomly slides to start the second half. It's weird.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So a different team in the South. So it can't be Charleston. I didn't even think about this. I feel like Staten Island maybe won.
Staten Island is
Okay.
40.
Right.
They are 40
I remember
wins
them
in the
ending
first
hot.
half,
Yeah.
57 wins in the second half over the first 2 years.
Because I remember them giving me a lot of hype going into year 2 off of that first half. And then I felt like they got better this year as the year went on. Okay, so that's 1. So I need the one in the South. We know it's not Lexington. So at least 4 teams to pick from. I almost think it's like High Point or Gastonia. Just because like they're always neck and neck on it. But like at the same point in time, they're both just like universally good. So it's hard to really pick like which half would they be better in. And normally the bad teams are where you really see like the split on them.
Right. I could see that.
So that's what I'm thinking. Like whose roster did not get rated versus whose did. And that's normally your answer.
That's a good point.
I have no confidence in the answer, but I'm going to say Charleston, fully expecting it to be wrong.
Charleston is correct, Nick.
Hey.
Nicely done, dude. And
right.
For the bonus here,
2
which
for 3.
team had over the last 2 years the lowest percentage of their wins come from the second half? And I'll tell you this: it was by a fairly large margin. Actually, it was there. No other team is within 5%. So they are like, if we're talking about how many what percentage of your wins come from the second half?
Yeah.
This team, only 41.5% of their wins are from the second half. Every other team is above 46%.
Okay.
So it is not even close.
There's 2 teams in my mind that I'm thinking of. They're both in the North.
Okay. I'll give you that.
I can't decide between the 2. I'm going to say Long Island.
Yes, sir. Long
Yes,
Island. And by the way,
got it.
how about that for a topic of conversation down the
Got
road?
it.
Long Island.
Yeah,
I believe they're over the past 2 years. They are they're 17 games above 500 in the first half the past 2 years, and they are 18 games below 500 in the second half.
I'm surprised it's that bad, but I'm not surprised they're more of a first half team. Because again, I use that same principle of they're probably getting all their players purchased at that end of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So the first half's still going to be good. Second half's where it gets tough. And I remember their pitching always goes to hell in the second half. And this past year especially, it was like a totally different team.
And they're big on the impressive rosters throughout the year.
Exactly.
Thing, and see if you can win early. So yeah, it's not a bad read. Yeah, man. Crazy. I honestly was surprised that Spire City was not in the crowd because if you remember, didn't Spire City lose like 13 in a row to start the year last year or something like that? And
they weren't good to start the year.
But then they got hot, apparently. I forgot about all this because we checked out on them kind of, and they went 26 and 37. So they were above 500 in the first half. Because I think they won like 8 or 9 in a row after losing 13 in a row. And for a while, we were like, are they about to do this? Like 13 in a row, 13 in a row.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, what a long year. Good Lord. Anyway, speaking of long years, this has been a long ass episode, dude.
Yeah. Probably should wrap this up then.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Plugs, then I'll do mine, and then we'll get out of here, and we'll see if in the next 3 minutes there's still food waiting for me.
Yeah, sorry about that, man. We got, oh God, what else? Indie Ball Nation got a video probably coming tomorrow, and a video, so tomorrow's from Friday. It's probably already posted if you're listening to this, and another video or 2 next week as well. So,
Indie Ball Pod, Twitter, Indie Ball Report, everywhere else. Keep an eye out. I'm not going to say I'm going to release anything because I don't expect to be. And I tried that like a month and a half ago where like, there'll be stuff out before the end of the month. And then there wasn't. So I'm not going to promise anything.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to myself.
Exactly. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the interview. We'll be back with more reviews. It's Frontier League next week, probably Frontier League East and Frontier League West. And then it is like 1 off week, then preview season. So, okay.
Hell yeah.
Until next time, don't forget to play ball.